After a short while, people from the city lord's castle also arrived. However, they didn't participate in the investigation. They were solely there to present food and clothes to all of the residents in the area. As the residents nibbled on bread and took sips of water, a hint of emotion returned to their numb faces, and the pain that had accumulated in their hearts for many years was finally soothed somewhat. Mag, I have to ask you about some details regarding the aforementioned duel. How did you manage to kill that second-tier knight? Of course, his knighthood had been cancelled last year. Brandley looked at Mag with a curious expression. If everyone was telling the truth, and Mag really had used a tree branch to kill Warwick, then that would indicate that he was at least as powerful as a third-tier knight. Amy was actually the one who killed him, I only made it appear that I was the one dueling him. Amy was eating bread with Jessica, and he looked at the two of them with a smile. At times like this, he had no choice but to shift the spotlight away from himself and onto Amy. I see. Your daughter sure is a brave little heroine. Brandley nodded with an enlightened expression. If Amy was the one behind all this, then everything made sense. After all, Mag really didn't look like someone who was as powerful as a third-tier knight. I thank you and your daughter on behalf of the Grey Temple. You assisted us in subduing a serial murderer last time, and now, you've exposed this dark underbelly, and brought it to our attention. You have contributed greatly to making Chaos City a better place. Brandley looked at Mag with genuine gratitude on his face. You're too kind. Mag nodded as he looked at the residents who were stuffing bread down their gullets. His expression was a little grave as he asked, I'm curious how many things like this happen in Chaos City on a daily basis. This is a city that prides itself on equality and freedom, as well as its law and order. But, if those laws are used as tools by the wrong people, then wouldn't these tall city walls transform this city into the harshest prison? Laws give everyone more freedom. That's what the Grey Temple and City Lord's Castle have always tried to do. However, it's just as you say, this incident should serve as a warning to us. Someone is using the laws that we established against us, and this matter must be reported to Lord Roland. I'm sure he'll be able to devise a good solution. Brandley nodded with a solemn expression. All right, I hope to see a better Chaos City someday. I'll be taking my leave now. Mag nodded, and pushed his bicycle toward Amy. Amy's father, thank you so much for what you did today. Thank you for saving us. Rebecca had just received a few loaves of bread from the employees of the City Lord's Castle, and she rushed over with Jessica before falling to her knees. You're very welcome. Jessica is Amy's friend, so I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Mag immediately helped her up, and smiled as he asked, Can I go in to have a seat? Of course, please come in. Rebecca hurriedly nodded, and entered through the door with Jessica's little hand in hers. Mag took a glance at the workers who were cleaning up the mutilated bodies before entering Jessica's house with Amy. The house was rather dim, with only one room. There was a bed and a tiny little window, from which light was entering. There was a little table that had been set up using logs beside the bed, upon which were placed some fabrics, needles, and thread. There was a dilapidated little bamboo chair off to the side and a small cooking bench in the corner. On top of the cooking bench was a pot of porridge, with a small bag of rice placed beside it. Aside from that, there was nothing else in the room. Mr. Amy's father, please have a seat. Jessica pulled the bamboo chair over with difficulty as she looked up at Mag. Her eyes were bright and clear, and there was a hint of gratitude shimmering within them. Sure, thank you. Mag nodded with a smile, and sat down on the only chair in the room. The chair had been repaired in many places using pieces of wooden boards, and it squeaked in protest as soon as he sat down. He immediately wound his body tightly in fear of crushing the chair beneath his weight. Have some water. I'm really sorry, but there's nothing else I can get you. And thank you so much for the dragon coin that you gave to Jessica last time, it saved my life, and I really don't know how to thank you. Rebecca passed some water to Mag in a chipped bowl as she looked at him with grateful eyes. The bowl was chipped, but it had been thoroughly washed, and was very clean. The water was also very clear, and Mag took a gulp down a big mouthful of it. He turned to Rebecca with a smile, and said, "No need to thank me. Are you a little better now?" Rebecca was only about 30 years of age, but she already had many wrinkles around the corners of her eyes, making her appear older than her actual age. Her face was also sickly pale, but her expression was far more animated than those of the people outside. Their faces looked as if they had been carved from stone, and were perpetually expressionless. What was particularly notable was her eyes. Her black eyes were just as clear as Jessica's, and they were very gentle and beautiful. It was clear that she had been a gorgeous woman in her younger days. Even though Jessica was living in such a horrible place, she was still so adorable and energetic, and Mag felt like he had found the reason for that. She had a good mother. "I felt a lot better after drinking your chicken soup, and I also bought some medicine, so I'm almost completely cured now." Rebecca nodded with gratitude before extending a hand toward Mag. There was a gold coin sitting on the palm of her hand, and she urged, "After that scuffle, I only managed to find 1 gold coin, but I'll definitely return your dragon coin. I've taken on some seamstress jobs, and while they don't pay very well, I can save up a little every day, and should have enough to repay you in 2 months. Keep the money. Just treat it as my gift to Jessica so she can buy some good food to eat." Mag shook his head, and gently pushed Rebecca's hand away. It appeared that she thought that he had come to collect his debt from her. "No, I must give this money to you." Rebecca extended her hand forward again, and looked at Mag with a firm expression. "That's right, Mr. Amy's father. My father told me that if I borrow something from someone, then I have to return it. Don't worry about us, I can already help Mother with her job so we can earn more." Jessica also nodded with an earnest expression. "All right, I'll take the money, but not now. Give it to me in 3 months. Mag nodded at the sight of Jessica and Rebecca's resolute expressions. He then picked up the little bag that was sitting on his lap, and he passed it to Jessica as he said, "Besides, I'm not here for money today. I'm here to invite Jessica to our lunch party today. This is a present that Amy prepared for you, I hope you like it." "A party?" Jessica's eyes lit up, and her gaze rested on the bag in her hands with curiosity and anticipation on her face. She looked up at Rebecca, and asked, "Mother, can I open it?" "Of course you can." Rebecca nodded in encouragement. Jessica walked over to the bed before carefully untying the bow knot that Amy had tied onto the bag. She tipped the bag over, and a cream-colored dress slid out. There was a colorful butterfly emblazoned on the chest of the dress, and it had its wings spread open as if it were going to fly into the sky. "Wow! That's such a beautiful dress!" Jessica's mouth gaped open as she stared at the little dress on the bed. She was stunned for a few seconds before turning around, and giving Amy a massive hug. Amy was a little nervous as she asked, "Jessica, do you like it?" "Yes. I love it. I have my own dress now, and it's the most beautiful yellow color." "Amy, thank you." Jessica nodded, and held on to Amy tightly with tears shimmering in her eyes. Rebecca turned away, and wiped at the corners of her eyes before raising her head to look up at the ceiling, and blinking to hold back her tears. In a quiet voice, Amy said, "Then, can you let me go? I think Ugly Duckling is suffocating." "Meow!" Ugly Duckling gave a despairing cry. "Sorry, Ugly Duckling, I forgot about you." Jessica immediately took a step backward, and rubbed Ugly Duckling's head with an apologetic expression. "That's all right, it's got a very hard head." Amy shook her head with a nonchalant expression. "Meow!" Ugly Duckling cast a gloomy glance at Amy. "I'm going to wear this dress to the lunch party today. It's so beautiful, I've never received such a beautiful present." Jessica was overjoyed. "Oh, you can wear that little butterfly hair clip as well, it would look super good on you." Amy nodded with excitement. Mag looked at the 2 excited little girls, and a smile gradually appeared on his face as his sullen mood was lifted. Sure enough, his little girl was always able to cheer him up. After playing together for a while, Amy departed with Mag as they had to go back to the restaurant to prepare for the lunch party. I really don't know how to thank you. Rebecca was full of gratitude as she bade farewell to Mag at the door. If you want to thank me, then ask Jessica to play with Amy more. Amy would love to have a playmate on her days off. Mag smiled as he waved goodbye to Jessica and Rebecca before pushing his bicycle away with Amy sitting on her little seat. The ordeal was over for everyone else, but it was only the beginning for the Grey Temple and the City Lord's castle. They had to clean up the bodies on the scene, and launch a thorough investigation into the events that led up to the incident. The residents were all munching on bread, and they looked up at Mag and Amy with gratitude as they left. Even though they didn't say anything, their gratitude was plain to see. Amy smiled, and said, "Father, they all seem to be very grateful to you. They're thankful to you too. If it weren't for the fact that you wanted to invite Jessica to your party, we wouldn't have come here." Mag smiled, and got onto the bicycle before riding it toward the restaurant. An autumn breeze blew past, and the sunlight shone down upon them, warming their bodies as well as their hearts. Within a conference chamber in the City Lord's castle, the atmosphere was grim to the extreme. The officials present all wore different expressions on their faces. Some were enraged, some were concerned, and some were horrified. Brandley put down the paper in his hands, and there were tears swimming in his eyes, but he forced himself not to shed them. Michael sat in silence with a frosty expression on his face. From now on, Alva will be stripped of his duties, and an investigation will be launched against him to find out where the compensation money meant for the miners' families has gone. This must be kept confidential, and I'll be requesting the Grey Temple's assistance to investigate all of the governors in Chaos City. Those who twist the law and use it against citizens of the city must receive severe punishment. Also, increase the compensation given to families of deceased miners and soldiers, set up a department to specifically address this issue. Do not let this tragedy repeat itself. Let me re-emphasize this, the laws of Chaos City are there to help people live more freely and safely. If anyone dares to use them against the people of Chaos City, then I will find them, and make them suffer a fate worse than death no matter who they are. Michael's sharp gaze scanned through all of the officials' presence. One of the fat officials instantly paled significantly, and he slid down onto the ground from his chair, but no one dared to help him up. "City Lord, I will report this immediately to my higher UPS." Brandley extended a respectful salute toward Michael before quickly departing. If a person upholding law and order were to sit at the same table with someone aiming to destroy law and order, the people that are supposedly being protected will always be the ones to get hurt. This was something that Novan told me when he rejected my offer to recruit him into the City Lord's castle. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant, but I suddenly do now. The most powerful corruptive force always originates from the inside. Michael glanced at Alva as a wry smile appeared on his face. Mag rode his bicycle toward the restaurant, and just as they were passing the magic potion shop, Amy asked, "Father, can I also invite Big Sister Zixie and Big Bear?" Mag parked his bicycle, and smiled as he replied, "Of course. I wonder if they'll have time to attend, though. I'll go in and ask." Amy climbed down from the bicycle on her own, and greeted Black Coal and Green Pea before walking into the magic potion shop. "Stupid fat cat, are you bike sick again? Look at you, lying around like an idiot." Kaka. Black Coal poked its head out of the cage, and chortled at the dizzy Ugly Duckling. "Meow." Ugly Duckling let loose an indignant cry, but it had only just extended its paws toward Black Coal before it lost control of its body, and fell onto its back, upon which it looked up at the sky with a suicidal expression. Black Coal burst into laughter again upon seeing that, and even Mag couldn't help but join in. "You're inviting me to a party?" Within the shop, Zixie was holding 2 vials of magic potions, and she looked at Amy with an elated expression. "Yes, and Big Bear can come as well. Father will be preparing a lot of good food." Amy nodded before holding up a little finger as she said, "He'll be making your favorite braised chicken as well." "I'll come." Zixie's eyes immediately lit up as she raised her hand, but she then slowly put down her hand, and was a little hesitant as she said, "But Master Urian went out this morning, and someone needs to look after the shop." "Then just close it. You barely get any customers anyway." Amy shrugged nonchalantly. "I'll take that as a yes then, Big Sister Zixie. Will Big Bear be coming?" Amy asked with a smile. "If I go, then he'll definitely go, but I'm a little worried, this is a kid's party, so won't they be scared of him? I think he's pretty handsome, but I'm not sure about others." Zixie was still a little concerned. "That's all right, he's ugly, but in a funny way, so he won't scare anyone." Amy shook her head nonchalantly. "You're right." Zixie's eyes lit up, but a peculiar expression quickly appeared on her face as she said, "But, little Amy, I feel like you're too blunt and honest when you speak." Amy looked up at Zixie with an earnest expression, and replied, "Really? Father says I have to be an honest little girl. That way, I'll grow up to be as beautiful as Big Sister Zixie. I also love your honesty. You're so adorable." Zixie rubbed Amy's cheek with a joyful smile on her face. "Bye-bye, Big Sister Zixie, you have to bring Big Bear and come at 11:30. Amy confirmed before skipping out of the shop. "All right, I'll definitely come. Anything for my braised chicken." Zixie nodded in a solemn manner. "Father, Big Sister Zixie and Big Bear will also be coming. That's everyone, right?" Amy emerged from the shop with a joyful expression. Mag patted Amy's little head, and replied, "We've invited everyone, good job, Amy. Let's prepare to welcome our guests now. My dear Princess Amy, would I be able to come to your lunch party as well?" Black Coal stuck out its little head with anticipation in its eyes. "Me too, would I be able to come as well?" Green Pea was also looking at Amy with a hopeful expression as it said, "I've never been to a party before. Green Pea can come. I'll introduce you to all of my friends, they've never seen a talking bird before." Amy nodded with a smile. "Then what about me?" Black Coal asked. "You can't come." Amy shook her head. "Why? I can talk as well." Black Coal stuck half of its body out from its birdcage, and continued, "Not only that, but I can also sing. I can sing a lot of beautiful songs. I'm super impressive. But, you're ugly. What if you scare my friends?" Amy shook her head with a concerned look, and said, "Uncle Blue Fatty is going to come with his unborn daughter, so it'll bad if you scare her even before she's born." Splat! Black Coal fell against the edge of the birdcage, unwilling to accept the cruel reality. Meow! Ugly Duckling immediately began to cry joyfully with a smug expression on its face. "All right, I'll let you come as well." Amy looked at Black Coal for a little while before splaying out her hands in a resigned manner. She thought about it for a moment before continuing, "But I'm going to cover your cage with a black cloth. That way, you won't be able to scare my friends." "Yes. I'll make sure to stay in my cage." Black Coal was immediately revitalized, and it began to jump for joy. "Let's go home. Big Sister Mia and Big Sister Aisha are waiting for us," Mag said with a smile. Black Coal's feathers had grown back after being singed by Amy, and it was looking a lot better than with its old feathers, but, it was indeed still quite ugly. "All right." Amy nodded before cradling Ugly Duckling in her arms, and walking toward the restaurant. As she did so, she caught sight of Yabimia and Sally, who were standing at the restaurant's entrance, and she yelled, "Big Sister Mia, Big Sister Aisha, let's perform the Spring is Here dance one last time." Sally was wearing a kipao with golden edges, revealing a sliver of her long snowy white legs, and complementing her regal aura to perfection. In contrast, Yabimia was wearing a black maid uniform with adorable white edges, giving her a youthful, energetic look. "Sure, I actually want to rehearse it again as well. This is the first time that I'll be dancing in front of others, and I'm really nervous." Yabimia nodded in response. I'm fine either way. Sally nodded with a smile. She appeared to be a lot calmer and more collected. Mag made his way over to them, and greeted the two of them before opening the door of the restaurant. As soon as Yabimiya entered through the door, she asked curiously, "Boss, what's the new dish today going to be?" "Yeah, father, what's the delicious new dessert that you were talking about?" Amy asked. Sally was also looking at Mag, awaiting an answer from him. "You'll know when you see it. Go and dance first. I'll go prepare the food, we've got quite a few guests today, after all." Mag shook his head with a smile, and made his way toward the kitchen. "No matter what it is, as long as it's made by father, it must be super delicious." Amy was brimming with confidence. "My thoughts exactly. Boss has never disappointed us." Yabimiya nodded in agreement. "Let's begin our final rehearsal. We'll have to organize the restaurant after that. We need to clear out some space for dancing, and we don't need that many tables and chairs anyway," Sally suggested with a smile. "All right." Amy nodded, placing Ugly Duckling in a nearby chair, and running to the counter to grab the music box. Meanwhile, Yabimiya and Sally began to clear out some space before organizing the tables in a semicircle around their impromptu dance venue. The music began. Amy stood in the center, while Sally and Yabimiya positioned themselves to either side of her. Thus, they began their final rehearsal of the Gakuraku Jodo dance. Mag was in the kitchen, preparing food for the upcoming lunch party. There was a total of 17 people who had been invited, which wasn't much compared to the customers that normally frequented the restaurant. Furthermore, most of them were kids, so he didn't have to prepare that much. "Amy, are you home? Ignatsu and I are here." A tender voice sounded along with a burst of knocking on the door. At the restaurant's entrance, Daphne wore a light green floral dress as she knocked on the door with her little hand. Beside her stood a chubby little demon with a little bean sprout growing on top of his head. He opened his mouth, and looked at the reflection of himself in the floor-to-ceiling window. He sucked in his stomach before releasing it, and he burst into laughter, causing the bean sprout on his forehead to quiver with his mirth. A tall and broad middle-aged man stood behind the two of them with a smile on his face. He looked up at the sign of the restaurant, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. "Daphne, Ignatsu, you're finally here." The door was opened soon after, and Amy cried in elation. Her gaze then fell on the middle-aged man behind Daphne, upon which her eyes immediately lit up, and she asked, "Why are you here, Grandpa Tiger? Are you here for the party as well?" "Amy, do you know my grandpa? Why are you calling him Grandpa Tiger?" Daphne asked. "I do, Daphne. Father and I met Grandpa Tiger when we went out of the city. He was wearing some tiger clothes, so I called him Grandpa Tiger. I didn't know he's your grandpa." "That's amazing." Amy nodded with excitement on her little face. "She's the powerful little magic caster that Grandpa was telling you about. She roasted a bronze wild boar with a fireball, and gave you the boar's tusks as a present," Guy said with a smile. Never would he have thought that the little half-elf girl that Daphne was always talking about was that little prodigy magic caster. What a surprising coincidence. "Wow, are you that powerful, Amy? Grandpa says bronze wild boars are super fierce, with long and sharp tusks. You killed one with a fireball." Daphne was shocked as she stared at Amy. "Are you that fierce?" Ignatsu's mouth also widened, and he unconsciously backed away half a step as if he wanted to open up some distance between himself and Amy. "Of course, I'm super fierce." Amy nodded with a serious look before a vibrant smile appeared on her face, and she gave Daphne a big hug as she said, "But I'm only fierce to baddies. I'm not fierce at all to my friends." "Did Amy just hug me?" Daphne's body stiffened, and a faint blush appeared on her little face. She was a little shy as she nodded, and said, I know. Amy is super good to her friends, and super adorable. Daphne is also super adorable," Amy replied with a serious expression. "Are really?" Daphne grasped at the hem of her little dress, and her little face was flushed with excitement. She looked up at Guy, and asked, "Grandpa, can you give me the present?" "Sure." Guy smiled as he handed a long box to Daphne. "Amy, this is my present for you." Daphne offered the long box to Amy with both hands, wearing an expectant look on her face. "What is it? Can I open it?" Amy was very curious as she held the long box in her arms. "I also want to know what it is." Ignatzu also shuffled forward, and surveyed the long grey box in Amy's hands with curiosity etched on his face. "Of course you can. This is my present to you, so you can open it whenever you want." Daphne nodded. Her expression suggested that she was a little nervous. Amy carefully untied the ribbon around the box before opening it. A snowy white wand was revealed. It was a little far-fetched to call it a wand. It was more like a simple handmade craft made from the tusk of a bronze wild boar. The thick and long tusk had been polished down to be very thin, but the surface was still a little coarse, and there were even 2 little holes on the bottom. A purple ribbon was tied around the wand, and there was some slightly messy text inscribed upon it, which read from Daphne, to the most adorable Amy. "Wow! What a brilliant wand! And there's purple ribbon tied around it. I love it. Thank you, Daphne." Amy's eyes lit up, and she carefully removed the wand from the box before holding it in her hand with an elated expression. "Do you really like it, Amy?" Daphne was also overjoyed to hear that, and her blush deepened even further. A faint smile also appeared on Guy's face. He had spent a lot of time making this wand with Daphne, and it was his first time working with magic stones and stone carving knives. He knew that the wand was a little ugly, but it still felt good to see his efforts acknowledged. Ignatzu stroked his double chin, and murmured to himself, "If this is a wand, then why do I feel like it's a little ugly?" Daphne turned to Ignatzu, and immediately transformed into a vicious little lioness. "Ignatzu! Do you want to die? I'm just offering my opinion." Ignatzu recoiled, and scurried away. He valued his life, so he was going to stay far away from crazy women. "That's not true, I think it's super beautiful, and I really love it. I didn't think that you would remember that I wanted a wand. It's really very good." Amy shook her head, and she slowly raised the crude wand in her hand. A burst of fire and a burst of icy flames began to revolve around the wand like 2 miniature dragons. The red and silver flames illuminated the wand with beautiful light, and the ugly wand was transformed into a dazzling work of art. So beautiful! That's so impressive, Amy." Daphne's eyes widened as she looked at Amy with a reverent expression. "I take back what I said earlier." Ignatzu was also staring at the wand with his mouth wide open. "You're such a kind little girl." A smile appeared on Guy's face as he looked at Amy. Amy placed the wand gently back into the box, and smiled as she said, "Thank you, Daphne. I really like this wand. This is my first wand, and I'll be sure to treasure it." "You're welcome. But, when I think about it, it's quite funny that I'm making you a present from the tusk that you gave me." Daphne giggled. "I also have a present for you. Give me your hand." Ignatzu extended a chubby little clenched fist toward Amy. "What is it?" Amy was quite curious as she extended her own little hand. "Don't you dare touch Amy's hand!" Daphne warned in a quiet voice. Ignatzu immediately raised his hand a little so it was above Amy's hand, and he released his clenched fist, upon which 2 objects fell into Amy's hand. They were 2 flat and smooth seeds, one of which was black, while the other one was white. They looked a little like ghost stones. "What's this, little bean sprout?" Amy was rather perplexed as she looked at the 2 seeds in her hand. "Are they just 2 ordinary seeds?" Daphne was also quite puzzled. How could they just be ordinary seeds? "These are the black and white thorn seeds that took me 3 months to breed. White is for binding, while black is for attacking." When you encounter a dangerous situation, you can toss them onto the ground, and they'll sprout and grow in 5 seconds. They'll be able to delay a first-tier magic beast for at least 5 minutes. Ignatzu was very proud of himself as he said, I'm going to become the most powerful plant manipulation master among all demons on the Norland continent. I'm going to be even better than my father. Take care not to let them come into contact with soil or water. Otherwise, they might destroy your house, Ignatzu reminded her. He then asked, also, why do you call me Little Bean Sprout? I'm clearly older than you. Amy smiled as she looked at the green bean sprout on his head, and replied, that's because you have a little bean sprout on your head. That little bean sprout is so adorable, I think it's a great name for you. This is a seedling of the tree of wisdom, not some little bean sprout. My father says that only the most talented demons have trees of wisdom growing on their heads. This is a sign of my wisdom and aptitude. Ignatzu retorted proudly. Then why do you always place last during exams? Amy was confused. That's because, Ignatzu felt as if he had received a heavy blow, and was at a loss for words. He scratched his head, and said, I actually just can't be bothered to compete with them. Otherwise, with my intelligence, I can get first place with ease. Daphne crossed her arms, and disdainfully said, don't you feel ashamed, saying that in front of the person who always gets number 1. Ignatzu blushed as he looked at Amy, and said, in any case, it's not some little bean sprout, it's the tree of wisdom. If you're going to give me a nickname, it should be Tree of Wisdom. All right, Little Bean Sprout. Amy nodded with an earnest expression. It's Tree of Wisdom. Why's Little Bean Sprout? What the hell is that? I think Little Bean Sprout is better. All right, you can call me Little Bean Sprout. Ignatzu finally gave up with a resigned shake of his head. 2 of Amy's friends have arrived already. Parber, the big sister that you're always thinking about is there, in fact, there are 2 of them. A horse-drawn carriage slowly came to a stop in front of Mamie Restaurant, and George chuckled as he looked at the people gathered at the entrance. Big sister? Where? A little head immediately poked out of the horse-drawn carriage, and he immediately began to clap his hands with joy at the sight of Amy and Daphne. Big sisters! I want kisses! I want huggies! I want to be raised up high! No, no, and no! Amy rejected all 3 of Parber's pleas with a cold expression. Parber's joyful expression immediately crumbled, and he pouted as he turned to the Daphne with a pitiable look. Daphne won't do it, either. Before Parber even had a chance to say anything, Amy rejected him in Daphne's stead, and said, we're all kids here, no one is going to spoil you. I'll walk by myself and hug myself then, Parber sniffled, and tried his best to suppress his tears. Ha ha ha, what an adorable little girl. Honey, is that Amy? She really is so adorable. A woman with a bulging stomach emerged from the carriage, and looked at Amy with a doting smile. She was clearly not intending to defend her son. Yes, Miranda, that's Amy. I'm sure there's also an adorable little princess in your stomach. George held a little boy with a wooden pacifier in his mouth, and nodded with a smile. He then nudged Parmer, who was still sitting in the carriage, and prompted, Parmer, why aren't you greeting everyone? Parmer? Why are you here? Daphne was a little surprised to see Parmer in the horse-drawn carriage. Isn't he really angry about losing to Amy last time in arithmetics? Ignatzu murmured. They forced me to come. I actually didn't want to come at all. I only wanted to stay at home and study, studying gives me joy. Parmer wore a slightly awkward expression at the sight of the curious Daphne and Ignatzu. He didn't think that Amy would invite those 2 as well. But, big brother, didn't you get on the horse-drawn carriage yourself after father said there was going to be dessert today? Parber looked at Parmer with a perplexed expression. Pfft! Ha 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 ha, Ignatzu immediately burst into laughter. The fat on his little stomach quivered with his mirth, and he was completely unable to stop laughing. Parma's expression stiffened, and he looked at Parber with a vexed expression as he said, "I'm not holding you today, either. You can walk on your own." He then jumped off the horse-drawn carriage. Looks like the little guy is developing a pretty strong ego. He knows that he can't allow himself to be embarrassed in front of girls. Miranda chuckled with amusement. He sure is. George nodded with a smile. He laid his hand over Miranda's and said in a gentle voice, "You stay seated for now, I'll help you off the carriage soon." He then gently laid Parber onto the ground, and then passed Angus to a servant before carefully helping Miranda down from the carriage. "Wow, Uncle Blue Fatty, is the little sister in this auntie's stomach?" Amy looked at Miranda's bulging stomach with a curious expression. Indeed. She already had 3 big brothers, so this time, it must be a little sister. George nodded with a smile. Miranda appraised Amy with a gentle look, and asked, "Little girl, do you prefer little sisters over little brothers?" "I do. Little sisters are more adorable, and more fun to play with. I love little sisters." Amy nodded with elation. "Then after I give birth, I'll get my little girl to come over and play with you. I brought a present for you today as well." Miranda brought out a small golden bracelet, and gently picked up Amy's little hand before placing it around her wrist. The golden bracelet was very intricately crafted, and it appeared even more dazzling as it was complemented by Amy's snowy white skin. "What a beautiful bracelet, it looks really good on you, Amy," Daphne praised before looking at the long grey box in Amy's hand with a conflicted expression. Her present seemed to be a little ugly in comparison. "Thank you, Auntie. I really like this bracelet, and the presents from Daphne and Little Bean Sprout too." Amy then held onto Daphne's little hand, and said, "Please come in. There are still some guests who haven't arrived yet, but you can all have a seat in the restaurant." Daphne's eyes immediately lit up again, and they were practically glowing as she fixed her gaze on Amy. "Sure. This is my first time coming to this restaurant." Miranda nodded with a smile, and made her way toward the restaurant as she said, "Honey, you told me that this restaurant only serves 2 types of dishes, is that really the case?" "Mag said that he's going to be releasing new dishes today, so there might be a few more," George replied with a slightly unnatural expression. He suddenly realized that he seemed to have forgotten something very important. "Really?" Miranda was a little skeptical. "Of course I did." Amy nodded in response. It's you." Mag's gaze fell on Guy, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. He looked at Daphne, and came to a realization as he chuckled. "Fate sure works in interesting ways." "Indeed. I didn't think we would have such affinity with one another." Guy nodded with a smile. "Welcome, everyone. There are still a few guests who have yet to arrive, so please have a seat first." Mag looked at everyone with a smile on his face. "Please take a seat." Yabimiya smiled as she pointed to the tables and chairs, which had been arranged in a semicircle. Miranda was helped into her seat by George, and she looked around at the restaurant with sparkling eyes. "What a beautiful restaurant! This must be the most beautiful restaurant in the Aden Square, right?" "It sure is. Mag's restaurant is the most beautiful one anywhere. Normally, it's really busy as well. There's always a long line of customers waiting for seats to be vacated." George nodded with a smile as he gently swayed Angus from side to side in his arms. Angus' gaze was focused on the crystal chandelier overhead, and he stared at it intently with a smile on his little face. Parmer and Parber sat down on either side of the two of them. Parmer chose the seat in the corner, and looked out the window in an aloof manner as if he were thinking about something. Daphne and Guy also sat down, along with Ignatsu, and the two of them were staring at Ugly Duckling with wide eyes. This orange little kitten was so adorable, they really wanted to hold it. Amy put away her presents before asking, "Do you want to play with Ugly Duckling?" "Yes." Parber was the first to raise his hand. "Yes. Daphne and Ignatzu nodded thereafter. Here you go. Amy picked up the reluctant ugly duckling from the counter before placing it on the ground with a smile. Amy, you're the best. Daphne squealed with elation. She leaned down and stroked Ugly Duckling's head with a vibrant smile on her face. The little kitty is so adorable. I want to hold it. Parber walked over in a slightly wobbly manner, and leaned down to reach for Ugly Duckling with his stubby little arms. Ugly Duckling rolled its eyes at Parber before taking a couple of agile steps back to avoid his embrace. Don't run. I don't want you to hold me, I want to hold you. Parber took a few more steps forward before spreading open his little arms. Ugly Duckling retreated a few steps again, and hid behind Amy's back. Ugly Duckling refuses to be held by you, and it rolled its eyes at you. Amy splayed her hands open with a resigned look. All right, even so, I still really like you, Parber announced in an earnest voice. Those little girls are so adorable. I hope I'll be giving birth to a little girl too. Miranda looked at Amy and Daphne with a hint of yearning in her eyes. Trajay looked at Miranda with a gentle expression, and said, You will. It's going to be a little girl this time for sure. Amy, we're here. A burst of knocking sounded along with Zixie's voice. It's Big Sister Zixie and Big Bear. Amy's eyes lit up as she rushed over to open the door. Thank you for inviting us to your party, little Amy. Zixie wore a white dress and held a floral wreath, which she placed on Amy's head with a smile on her face. The yellow, white, and pink little flowers were all in full bloom, and were particularly beautiful when complemented by the green leaves. Thank you, Big Sister Zixie and Big Bear. Welcome. Amy stroked her floral wreath, and her smile became even more vibrant. Lulu stood behind Zixie with a bashful smile on his face, holding two bird cages in his hands. In the cage on the left, Green Pea spread open its wings in a graceful manner before bowing to Amy, and saying, Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Princess Amy, but do I really have to stay in this terrifying pitch-black cage for the entire duration of the party? This is physical and mental torture to me. There was a black cloth draped over the cage on the right, and Black Coal's pleading voice sounded from within it. You can't come out. There are going to be many kids today, so you have to stay in the cage. If you come out by yourself, then I'll freeze you, and take you back home. Amy shook her head with an implacable expression. All right, I won't come out, then. Black Coal gave a slightly resentful reply before falling silent. Right at that moment, a surprised voice sounded from behind Lulu. Wow, Amy, is this your family's restaurant? It's so beautiful. Lulu stepped away to the side, revealing Jessica and Rebecca, who had just arrived. Jessica had changed into the little yellow dress that Amy had given her, and was also wearing that yellow butterfly hair clip. She was staring at the crystal-clear floor-to-ceiling window with surprise in her black eyes. She had one hand behind her back as if she were hiding something. Rebecca stood beside Jessica in a green and grey floral dress. The dress was a little old, and quite heavily creased as if she had only recently dug it out from a box. Her hair was tied in a simple manner, and she wore a warm smile on her face. Yep, this our family's restaurant. You look so good in that dress, Jessica. Amy's eyes lit up at the sight of Jessica, and she quickly strode over to hold Jessica's hand as she said, You're as beautiful as a little butterfly. You sure are. And Jessica is a lovely name. Zixie was also looking at Jessica with a warm smile, and she gently stroked Jessica's hair. Thank you. Jessica's response was a little shy. She then turned to Amy with an earnest expression, and said, Amy, give me your hand, I have a present for you. Sure. Amy extended her left hand, and looked at Jessica with anticipation on her face. Jessica placed her little hand over Amy's in a solemn manner before slowly opening her fist, upon which a purple crystal the size of a thumb appeared on Amy's palm. The crystal's surface was a little irregular, but it was very clean and clear, without any impurities. Dazzling light emanated from the crystal as the sunlight shone down upon it, projecting a beautiful purple ribbon onto Amy's hand. Wow, what a pretty purple gemstone! Amy's eyes lit up, purple was her favorite color. However, she quickly placed the crystal back into Jessica's hand, and shook her head as she said, "No, Jessica, I can't accept such a precious gift. My father gave this to me before his accident. He told me that in this world, true friendship is more precious than any beautiful stone." Jessica picked up Amy's hand, and placed the crystal back into her palm. A pure smile appeared on her face, and she said, "That's why I'm giving it to you. You're more precious than this stone, and I'm sure father would think the same." An elated smile appeared on Jessica's face, and she also nodded in response. "Scott, Jessica has just received the valuable gift of friendship, and she has parted with the purple stone that you gave her. I hope you can see this from up above." Rebecca smiled at the sight of the two little girls, and she turned away to wipe some tears from the corners of her eyes. "I'm not late, am I?" A gentle voice sounded, and Luna also arrived. "Teacher Luna. You're not late at all. Everyone's here, so we can begin the party now." Amy was elated upon catching sight of Luna. "Teacher Luna, you came as well." Jessica was also very happy to see her. "I sure did. Both of you look so beautiful today." Luna smiled at Amy and Jessica before producing two little vibrant red flowers as if she were performing a magic trick. She wove the flowers into the two little girls' hair, and said, "I didn't have time to prepare a present today, so I'm giving each of you a little red flower. Teacher Luna, I'm Jessica's mother. Thank you for looking after me and my daughter all this time." Rebecca made her way toward Luna before extending a respectful bow. "You're too kind. Jessica is very adorable, and I really like her. I heard you've been suffering from some ill health lately, are you all better now?" Luna asked in a concerned voice. "I'm much better now, thanks to Mr. Mag's help. I'll be able to continue working, and Jessica won't have to keep begging on the streets." Rebecca nodded with a smile. "Mr. Mag sure is a kind person," Luna said with a smile. She didn't know how he had helped Jessica's mother, but it was good news that Jessica wouldn't have to beg on the streets anymore. "Teacher Luna." After everyone walked in, Daphne and Ignatsu also extended a joyful greeting toward Luna. "Hello, Teacher Luna." Parber was a little surprised to see Luna, and the expression on his face became even more awkward, but he still mustered his courage and extended a greeting toward her. "Hello, Daphne, Ignatsu, Parber, you're all here as well. Looks like Amy really did invite all of her friends." Luna smiled as she greeted the children and parents before sitting beside Zixi and Lulu. The two bird cages were placed on a table, and Amy gestured to her little friends. "Look, this is a talking bird." "A talking bird? Really? My neighbor's parrot can also speak, but it only imitates what my neighbor says, so it can't actually communicate." Ignatsu was the first one to make his way over to the bird cages with a curious look on his face. "I've never seen a talking bird before. And this bird is so beautiful, its feathers look like they're glittering." Daphne stared at Green Pea with amazement etched on her face. "Little birdie! Little birdie!" Parber clapped his little hands with elation. He grabbed a chair beside him, and tried to climb onto it, but his limbs were too short and stubby, so he was unable to succeed. How could a bird possibly be able to speak? "It's just a prank." Parmer cast a disdainful glance in their direction. "This is Green Pea, and this Black Coal. Black Coal is too shy, so it's hiding, but we can still hear its voice." Amy heard what Parmer was saying, but she didn't respond. Instead, she introduced Green Pea and Black Coal to everyone. "I'm not shy. And my name isn't Black Coal, either. You may refer to me as the Honorable Fama Odin Ben." Black Coal's vexed voice sounded from within the birdcage that was enshrouded by the black cloth. "I'm Sunny. They often call me Green Pea, but I prefer the name Sunny." Green Pea spread open its wings in a graceful manner. "Wow, they really can talk. And they're conversing with us, not just repeating the same few sentences over and over again. Ignazio was amazed. What a beautiful voice! I also want an adorable talking bird. Daphne turned to look at Guy. This is also the first time that I've seen a talking bird. If I see one in the future, I'll definitely capture it for you. Guy was feeling a little powerless. After all, encountering a talking bird was a very unlikely event. Birdie! Hug! Parber spared open his little arms, and tried to grab the birdcage on the table. However, the table was far taller than he was, and his efforts were in vain. It really is a talking bird. It's so adorable, even more so than our little pet at home. Miranda's eyes lit up, and she stroked Parma's hair as she said, Parmer, don't make snap judgments on things you've never seen before. Otherwise, it will make you seem shallow, and that's not how a man should be. True men are all very modest and polite. I understand, Mother. Parmer looked at Miranda before bowing his head with a hint of embarrassment. However, he quickly raised his head again, and looked into Miranda's eyes with a serious expression as he vowed, I'm going to become a true man, and act as a role model for my little brothers. I'm sure you can do it. Miranda nodded with an encouraging smile. George only sat off to the side, and looked on with a smile. The little guy in his arms reached for the crystal chandelier with its chubby little hands, and even though he couldn't actually reach the chandelier, there was still a joyful smile on its face. Come on over, everyone. Mag emerged from the kitchen, and instructed with a smile. I'm very pleased that all of you came to attend our party today, and I hope you can all have a good time. You can order anything you like, and aside from the tofu pudding, there are no quantity restrictions on any of the other dishes. After everyone sat down in their seats, Mag continued speaking, while Yabimiya placed menus in front of everyone. Wow, so many dishes! Honey, are these all new dishes that were only released today? Miranda was amazed by the variety of dishes on the menu. I think, that's probably the case, George replied with an awkward expression. He didn't think that Mag would be so straightforward, and allow everyone to pick dishes from the actual restaurant menu. Is that really the case? Miranda wore an amused smile at the sight of George's awkward expression. She looked at the menu for a while before deciding, the braised chicken and rice and Yangzhou fried rice are both very delicious, but with so many new dishes on the menu, I should explore some other options. I'll get a la jirujiamo, a sweet tofu pudding, a spicy grilled fish. Mag looked at Miranda, and shook his head with a smile. My apologies, but the rujiamo and spicy grilled fish aren't very suitable for you at the moment as they're too stimulating, so it may not be very good for the baby. However, you can try the tofu pudding if you'd like, and the braised chicken and rice and Yangzhou fried rice are still good options as well. He's right, Miranda, you should wait until birth before trying those two dishes. Is that right? Miranda was slightly disappointed, but she still nodded, and said, all right, then I'll get a sweet tofu pudding and a savory tofu pudding. George turned to Mag with a grateful expression on his face. Sorry, but the tofu pudding is limited to one per person. The nutrition content in them is very high, and excessive consumption could lead to difficulties with digestion. Madam shrugged in an apologetic manner. He wasn't making up those rules. Even a normal person was advised to only have one tofu pudding per day, let alone a pregnant woman. All right, then I'll get a sweet tofu pudding, then a Yangzhou fried rice and a braised chicken and rice. Miranda was still a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, she was happy to taste the Yangzhou fried rice and braised chicken and rice again. Sure. Mag nodded. There's so much good food. Can we really order whatever we want? Jessica's mouth gaped open in amazement upon hearing Amy's description of all of the restaurant's dishes. Amy nodded before whispering the answer into Jessica's ear. Of course you can. Father says all of us can order whatever we want, and every dish is super delicious. Oh, by the way, a new dish is being released today, so you have to save some space in your stomach for that new dish at the end. Alright, then I'll eat whatever Amy eats. That way, I definitely won't eat too much. Jessica's eyes lit up as she nodded. Jessica, don't order that much. Rebecca looked at the prices on the menu, and her eyes widened in shock. Even the cheapest dish on the menu cost 200 copper coins, and the most expensive spicy grilled fish cost up to 2,000 copper coins. Those prices were unimaginable to her. It's all right, Jessica can order whatever she wants. This is a party, so the prices on the menus aren't applicable, Mag said with a smile. Rebecca looked at Mag's warm expression, then at Jessica's expectant look, and hesitated momentarily before nodding with gratitude in her eyes. Thank you. I want a spicy grilled fish. I love fish, and the fish from Amy's restaurant are all super big, so they must be super tasty. Daphne's eyes were glittering with anticipation. Mag recorded everyone's orders before entering the kitchen. Miranda turned to Georgie with a smile, and asked, Honey, is it because you're concerned for our child that you only bring back braised chicken and rice and Yangzhou fried rice for me every time? I actually really wanted to taste those dishes with you as well, but Mag says they're not suitable for pregnant women, so I didn't dare to bring back any. I didn't want to tell you about them, either, as that would only make you crave something that you can't have. I lied to you, I'm sorry. Georgie gave Miranda a formal apology. Miranda stroked Georgie's face with a warm smile, and replied, What are you apologizing for, you dummy? For the sake of our child, I can resist any craving. Yabimiya brought out a platter of tofu puddings first. There were both sweet and savory puddings, and she placed them onto the tables according to the orders. This sweet tofu pudding is so delicious. It melts in my mouth, and its flavor is amazing. Honey, why didn't you tell me that there was such delicious food in Mag's restaurant? A blissful expression appeared on Miranda's face after tasting her first spoonful of tofu pudding, but she then turned to Georgie with a slightly displeased look. Mag says the tofu pudding is not available for takeaway, so, cold sweat began to bead on Georgie's forehead. Didn't she just say that he had nothing to be sorry about? Then you could have accompanied me here to eat it. Miranda harumphed as she ate another spoonful of tofu pudding. Soon, her attention was focused entirely on the tofu pudding, and she didn't have the time to blame Georgie anymore. It's as white as snow, and so soft and bouncy. What an amazing dish! Jessica placed a spoonful of tofu pudding into her mouth, upon which her eyes immediately lit up. She swallowed the mouthful of tofu pudding, and exclaimed, Amy, your father is amazing. She had never tasted such delicious food before. Rebecca ate her first spoonful of tofu pudding, and an incredulous expression also appeared on her face. She was surprised by the 200 copper coin price tag, but she had to admit that the dish was unbelievably tasty. It was the most delicious thing she had ever had aside from the braised chicken and rice. Everyone was basking in the delicious flavor of the tofu pudding, while Yabimiya brought the next round of dishes, which included braised chicken and rice, Yangzhou fried rice, and rujiamos. Mia, you go have a seat and enjoy your meal as well. Leave the rest to me. Mag smiled as he took the platter of grilled fish from Mia's hands. All right, thank you, boss. Yabimiya smiled and nodded before taking a seat to enjoy her tofu pudding. Daphne, here's your medium-size mildly spicy grilled fish. It's a little hot, so do be careful. Mag smiled as he placed the grilled fish in front of Daphne. The delicious spicy aroma coupled with the alluring scent of fish wafted through the air. The bright red juices were still bubbling from the effect of the lit alcohol stove under the platter, and the extravagant dish immediately captured everyone's attention. That smells so good. I really want to have some. Miranda immediately sat up, and gulped involuntarily at the sight of the grilled fish in front of Daphne. However, right at that moment, her bulging stomach rumbled a little as if the little guy inside was trying to break out. Honey, can we order one as well? I only want a tiny little bite. Even our little baby is asking for some, she must really want to taste such a delicious dish too. Miranda looked at Trajay with a pitiable expression. No, Miranda. The fish is too spicy, and your stomach won't be able to handle it. Trajay shook his head firmly. But I really want to eat it. Miranda stared at Daphne as the latter sunk her chopsticks into the grilled fish. Trajay gulped at the sight of the alluring grilled fish before turning to Miranda with words of consolation. Don't be sad, I won't eat any of the grilled fish, either. Our braised chicken is really delicious too. Due to the hormonal imbalances present during pregnancy, Miranda experienced sudden mood swings. After having 3 children together, Trajay was already very familiar with the entire process, so he wasn't impatient or annoyed by it in the slightest. After giving birth, we have to come back and eat lots and lots of fish. Miranda nodded as she looked at Trajay with an earnest expression. Sure. After the child is born, you can have as much grilled fish as you like. I'll come here with you every day. Trajay wore a warm smile on his face, and he held Angus in one arm while patting Miranda's stomach with his other hand as he crooned, "Be a good little baby now. After you're born, Daddy will take you and Mommy here to have as much fish as you want." It was as if the little baby in Miranda's stomach understood Trajay's promise, and the little guy quickly settled down much to Trajay's relief. This spicy grilled fish is so delicious, I feel like my throat is on fire, but I can't stop eating. Vivian really likes foods with strong flavors, so she would definitely love this. Luna fanned her mouth with her hand as she stuck out her tongue in an adorable manner. She was contemplating when she would be able to sneak out with Vivian to enjoy this delicious spicy grilled fish. Mr. Mag's cooking skills are simply extraordinary. Such delicious food can't be found anywhere else. Amy's father is so awesome. I'm so envious that Amy gets to eat such delicious food every day. She must feel like she's in heaven every day. Everyone was full of praise for Mag, and Amy wore a proud and elated smile on her little face. You're all far too kind. Mag shook his head with a modest smile, but he was in high spirits from receiving so much praise. He was filled with an indescribable sense of accomplishment whenever he saw his food bringing joy to his customers. Everyone began to focus on their meals, and the chatter gradually died down. Only after all of the food had been cleared away from the tables did everyone burp with satisfaction. Burp, Jessica turned to Amy, who was holding the last Rigiamo on the table, and a surprised expression appeared on her face as she said, "Amy, how can your stomach store so much food? I'm already full, but you can still eat so much." "That's because my stomach is bigger than Jessica's." Amy giggled. She held the Rigiamo in both hands and quickly devoured it. "Looks like we've all finished our meals. For this lunch party, Amy, Mia, and Aisha prepared a dance for all of you. Let's take a short break, then watch their performance. The name of the dance is Spring is Here. After the performance, dessert will be served. That will also be the new product that the restaurant will be releasing, so please have a taste and give me your feedback," Mag announced with a smile. He was also looking forward to watching the premiere of Gakuraku Jodo. "Wow, really? You can dance too, Amy? That's amazing." Daphne's eyes were glowing as she looked at Amy. "Do you really know how to dance?" Ignazio was rather skeptical. "Amy's a really fast learner. Back when teacher Luna was teaching us to sing, she managed to master the song right away." Jessica was very confident in Amy's abilities. "Spring is here? What kind of dance is that going to be? Did Mr. Mag teach it to Amy? Is it like that A Little Girl with Mushrooms song?" Luna took a curious glance at Amy before turning her attention to Mag. That catchy A Little Girl with Mushrooms song had made a strong impression on her. "I practiced for a long time, and I still feel like I'm not that good at it, but I want to perform the dance for all you." Amy's expression was a little nervous, but her little face soon lit up with excitement as she said, "After performing the dance, we'll be able to taste Father's new dessert. I'm really looking forward to it." "Me too. I've already fallen in love with every single one of your father's dishes. Ignatzu nodded with an earnest expression. The little bean sprout on his head wobbled from side to side, and he appeared to be in high spirits. I'm also curious what Mag's new dish will be. Will it be as delicious as tofu pudding? Zixi looked on with an expectant gaze. After a short break, Amy, Yabimiya, and Sally made their way to the open area that they had cleared out earlier. Amy stood at the very center, with Yabimiya to her left and Sally to her right. The two of them faced three different directions, and stood in the iconic Gakuraku Jodo formation, adopting the starting pose in the process. There was a half-elf loli in a little pink dress, a horned half-dragon in a black maid uniform, and an elf in a kipao with golden edges. Adorable, exuberant, graceful. All three of them had different dispositions, but their combination was in perfect harmony. There are so many people watching, I'm so nervous. Yabimiya focused on slowing her breathing, but she could still hear her heart pounding in her chest. Prior to working at Mamie Restaurant, she was just a worker who washed dishes and prepared ingredients in the kitchen. She was despised by her colleagues and insulted by her bosses. She was afraid of facing large crowds, and even afraid of conversing with strangers. Never would she have thought that she would be able to learn dancing and perform a dance in front of so many people someday. However, all of that became a reality when she came to Mamie Restaurant. She learned how to face all customers with a genuine smile, and she discovered what it meant to have confidence and be respected. You can do it, big sister Mia. Amy could see that Yabimiya was quite tense, and she held onto her hand as encouragement. Your dancing is already fantastic, even better than mine, so don't be nervous, and just dance like how we normally practice. Sally also gave her an encouraging smile. Yabimiya suddenly felt as if her entire body was filled with power, and her nerves disappeared as she nodded earnestly. Let's begin. Mag smiled as he pressed the play button on the music box. The joyful Gakuraku Jodo song began to play, and the three of them began to dance. All of their movements were fast and sprightly yet still filled with energy and enthusiasm. Their graceful hand gestures and shuffling dance steps combined in perfect harmony. All three of them danced with different styles, but they were completely synchronized, and the guests simply couldn't look away. That's awesome! Ignatzu's mouth was wide open with incredulity. What a rhythmic song! And what a beautiful dance! Luna had also been stunned. Amy is so awesome! How can she be so good at everything? I really love her! Daphne stared at Amy like an entranced fangirl. Even though he had been watching them learn the dance step by step, it was the first time he had ever seen them perform the complete dance routine. Even Yabimiya, whose movements had been quite stiff initially, managed to find her own style and rhythm. What a beautiful song! What kind of instruments are creating those sounds? There seems to be a drum and a monochord in there somewhere. The dance is really brilliant as well. Zixi tapped her leg along with the energetic rhythm of the music, and she stared at the dancing trio with amazement and curiosity in her eyes. Who would have thought that she would look pretty good when dancing? Parma's eyes also widened in disbelief at the sight of Amy's splendid dance moves. It was the first time he had seen a little girl around his age dancing, and was surprised that she was able to dance so well. It was a little difficult to correlate her with the little girl in dirty clothes from before. What spectacular music and choreography! The song is so good, I really want to learn it as well. Such a beautiful dance, and their figures are all so good. My waist was also that slender once, and I was also a great dancer back in my youth. Miranda supported her chin in her hands, and watched the dance with a reminiscent expression. Indeed you were. It was love at first sight for me when I saw you during Chaos City's grand ceremony of peace. You were the best dancer in the troupe, and I was completely unable to look away. Trj nodded with a smile, and he also wore a reminiscent expression as he looked at Miranda. You were so tall and handsome back then. Even though you were below the stage, I still saw you immediately, and it was like there was a voice in my head that was yelling, he's the one. After that, I fell into your trap. Miranda squeezed George's cheeks, and sighed with emotion as she said, time really is the best equalizer. Pfft! Mag almost burst into laughter upon hearing their conversation. An awkward expression appeared on George's face, and he hurriedly explained, ahem. Mag, I may be like this now, but back in my younger days, I was a handsome and dashing gentleman. In fact, I was known as one of the 4 Aiden gentlemen. Let me guess, Harrison is also one of them, right? Mag raised an eyebrow with a skeptical look. Do you know of us 4 Aiden gentlemen as well? George turned to Mag with a hint of surprise on his face. No, this is my first time hearing about it. Mag shook his head as he tried to suppress his laughter. It appeared that the 4 Aiden gentlemen weren't ranked based on outward appearance. They were most likely titles that they had given themselves, and it was highly possible that the other 2 gentlemen were the other 2 fatties. Zixi suddenly turned to Lulu, and asked, are they beautiful? They are. Lulu nodded with a bashful smile. Lulu, you've changed. Zixi pouted and looked at Lulu with a sad expression. What? How? Did I do something wrong? Lulu turned to Zixi with a panicked expression. In the past, you would always tell me that I'm the most beautiful, but now, you're looking at other women. You've changed. I'm no longer your one and only. Zixi sighed as if Lulu had cheated on her. You're still my one and only, dummy. There's no lack of beautiful things in this world, but in my heart, you'll always be the most beautiful. That's the difference between you and them. Lulu stroked Zixi's hair with his big hand as he looked at her with a gentle expression. Hee hee, did you dip your lips in honey? Zixi clenched her little fists, and gently punched Lulu's chest. She turned to Amy, and said, Lulu, let's have an adorable baby like Amy. No, let's have a bunch of adorable little babies. Sure, we can have as many as you like. Lulu nodded with a smile as he wound his arm around Zixi's shoulder. As the song neared its conclusion, Amy slowly leaned forward and blinked her bright blue eyes, pointing a finger and wiggling her shoulders. Erg! I can't. My heart is about to jump out of my mouth. That's cheating, Amy. Daphne clasped her hand over her heart, and looked at Amy with a deep blush on her face. Mommy, this big sister is trying to seduce me. Harbour was in the process of licking his little bowl when he suddenly turned and yelled at Miranda, drawing raucous laughter from everyone. It is a little seductive. Mag was directly facing Yabimiya, and even though she wore a shy blush on her face, he had to admit that she looked very alluring as she danced. The song slowly drew to a conclusion, and the 3 of them stopped in unison, each of them adopting a graceful pose of their own. That was awesome. That dance was beautiful, Amy. Can you teach it to me? All 3 girls were awesome. Loud applause erupted along with enthusiastic cheers. After watching such a beautiful dance, everyone wore elated smiles. The atmosphere had become very lively following the performance. Thank you, everyone. Amy smiled and nodded at everyone, and she also had a joyful smile on her face. It was her first time dancing in front of so many people, so she was also a little nervous. However, she could sense that big sister Mia was even more nervous than she was, so she tried her best not to show it. We did it. Yabimiya was still a little dizzy. She felt as if all of her blood had rushed to her brain, and as she listened to everyone's praise and applause, she felt like the entire world was a little surreal. Sally was the calmest and most collected among the 3, but she also wore an elated smile. It was the first time dancing in front of so many non-brethren for her, and it was quite a special feeling. Mag stood up with a smile, and announced, that was a brilliant dance. Have a seat, and I'll be bringing out the new dessert. Its name is ice cream. Ice cream? What's that, Father? Is it something with ice in it? Amy's eyes lit up with curiosity as she looked at Mag. Everyone else also turned their attention to Mag. After enjoying so many delicious dishes, they were all looking forward to what Mag could offer next. Mag nodded with a smile, and asked, "That's right, it's something with ice in it. There are 4 flavors, vanilla, mocha, blueberry, and chocolate. Which one would you like? Is vanilla supposed to be fragrant grass one? Can you eat grass, though?" Daphne was quite curious. Mag smiled, and explained, "Yes, vanilla is a type of herb with a special fragrant aroma. It's not for consumption on its own, but it can be ground down into powder to create a type of ingredient. As for mocha, it is a special ingredient made from ground green tea leaves, and it has quite a refreshing flavor. Lastly, chocolate is a very rich and sweet food. I'm sure we all know about blueberries, so no explanation is required there. In any case, all 4 flavors have their unique properties, and you're free to try them out as you please. The tofu pudding only has sweet and savory flavors, but the 2 factions are already at war with one another. With 4 flavors for this new product, are there going to be 4 lines outside the restaurant now?" Trajay contemplated momentarily before raising his hand as he said, "I want a chocolate ice cream." Miranda took a while longer to decide, and she said, "I want a sour one, so I'll get a blueberry ice cream." "I want a mocha flavor one." Parmer raised his hand, and although his expression was quite calm, there was anticipation shimmering in his eyes. "I want the fragrant one." "Sweet? Sweet?" Angus raised his little hand, and whooped with elation. He had just eaten some sweet tofu pudding, and was in very high spirits. "No, no, you still can't eat icy stuff yet, Angus." Miranda grabbed onto his little hand and shook her head. "Wah!" Angus immediately burst into tears upon hearing that. "Wow, can I try all 4 flavors one after the other?" Amy's eyes were sparkling with excitement as she looked at Mag. "Of course. You can have as many as you like." Mag nodded with a smile. For foodies, choice wasn't an issue, as they could just order one of every flavor. "Ice cream? Mr. Mag sure gives his food interesting and unique names. This must be a dessert that he invented, right? What a supremely talented chef." Luna was very impressed as she looked at Mag's profile through the kitchen window. Everyone sat and stared at the kitchen with expectant eyes, wondering what kind of dessert Mag was going to serve up. Soon, Mag re-emerged from the kitchen with a platter that was filled with uniform holes that were evenly spaced apart. On top of those holes, there was ice cream of 4 different colors sitting within cones. There was the light yellow vanilla ice cream, the light green mocha ice cream, the bluish-violet blueberry ice cream, and the brown chocolate ice cream. Frosty air was rising off the ice cream, and 2 ball ice cream cones were like flowers blooming within a white mist, creating a beautiful spectacle. "This is Parma's mocha ice cream, Ms. Miranda's blueberry ice cream, and Lulu's chocolate ice cream. This is our restaurant's new product, ice cream. Please enjoy. Oh, and one more thing, I advise you to lick the ice cream rather than bite it." Mag handed the ice cream cones to each person with a smile on his face. Amy was holding the bluish-violet blueberry ice cream. "Is this made from ice? It appears to be solid." Trajay surveyed the ice cream in his hand with a skeptical look. "It looks really delicious." Miranda looked at the ice cream in her hand with expectant eyes. "It really is icy, and it's purple too. I love it." Amy looked at the blueberry ice cream in her little hand, and her eyes completely lit up. The 2 balls of bluish-violet were sitting in a conical wafer shell, around which a piece of paper was wrapped. The faint fragrance of blueberry wafted toward her along with wisps of frosty air. "So I'm supposed to lick it?" Amy held the ice cream in front of her with both hands before gently licking it with her little pink tongue. The sweet and sour flavor of blueberries coupled with a rich milky taste flourished on the tip of her tongue. The smooth icy texture of the ice cream made Amy feel as if she was situated in a vast expanse of purple snow. Purple snowflakes were falling from the sky, and she caught one with her tongue, only to discover that it was sweet and sour, with milky undertones. "It's so delicious. I love blueberry ice cream. Amy took another lick of ice cream with elation etched on her face. Is this the mocha ice cream? Tea leaves are supposed to be brewed in hot water and drunk as a beverage, but Mr. Mag is saying that he ground tea leaves into powder before making it into ice cream. Wouldn't the ice cream be really bitter, then? Luna inspected the mocha ice cream in her hand with a curious expression. Her grandfather really liked to drink tea. The green tea that was produced on Vic Mountain was thoroughly enjoyed by all of the nobles in Rodu as it could improve alertness as well as digestion. However, the yearly yield of tea leaves from Vic Mountain was quite low, so the prices were very high. Following the spring harvest, the tea leaves would always be immediately sold out. Her grandfather's students knew that he liked to drink tea, so they always bought him a kilogram or so of tea leaves every year, and he always reserved the tea for special occasions. There were also tea leaves produced elsewhere, but there was a clear disparity in quality compared to the tea leaves on Vic Mountain. Luna was often staying with her grandfather in the past, so she had expert tea brewing skills, as well as an extensive knowledge of tea leaves. As such, she knew how to discern good tea leaves from average ones. Luna inched her nose toward the ice cream before taking a gentle whiff. The fragrant aroma of green tea coupled with a rich milky scent immediately gushed into her nose, making her close her eyes involuntarily. The refreshing aroma of the tea carried with it the scent of spring rain, and she felt as if she had been teleported to an orchard filled with green tea trees. The tea leaves swayed gently in the spring wind, and as she inhaled the faint aroma of the tea, she felt as if her entire body was being purified. What kind of tea leaf is this? Why does it contain such a rich aroma? This aroma is superior to that of the best spring tea on Vic Mountain, and this scent is only from grinding the tea leaves down into powder, not brewing them in hot water. Luna opened her eyes, and stared at the ice cream in front of her with incredulity in her eyes. The spring tea on Vic Mountain was widely renowned as the best tea on the Norland continent, but the aroma of the tea emanating from this ice cream was clearly superior. She hesitated momentarily before licking the top ball of ice cream. The ice cream slowly melted on the tip of her tongue, and the rich flavor of milk slid down her throat along with that exquisite taste of tea. It was an indescribable feeling, just as if there were countless tiny little fingers massaging her lips, chin, and throat, striking her with the urge to moan with bliss. One vanilla in Chinese literally means fragrant grass. The refreshing icy taste soothed the scorching oily sensation from eating the spicy grilled fish. Luna tried her best not to utter any strange sounds. She slowly opened her eyes and gently exhaled. The residual refreshing taste of the green tea made her entire body feel light and carefree. This is far superior to the best Vic Mountain spring tea. Even the tea leaves harvested from that 1,000-year-old tree that Grandpa has don't compare to the green tea in this ice cream. What kind of supreme-grade green tea could be this extraordinarily flavorful? I even feel like my digestion has improved after taking just a single lick. Luna stared at the ice cream in her hand with unadulterated shock. It was exactly because she was a tea expert that she knew what such supreme quality tea leaves entailed. Tea leaves of this caliber could be auctioned for several 100,000 copper coins per 50 grams in Rodu. If there were a few avid tea enthusiasts participating in the auction, then that price could go even higher. After all, 25 grams of tea leaves from the 1,000-year-old tree on Vic Mountain was auctioned for 100,000 copper coins, and these tea leaves were clearly of a higher caliber. But Mag was using such supreme-grade green tea to make ice cream. If her grandfather were to hear about this, he would be absolutely furious. But this flavor really is super delicious. It's sweet yet not overly rich, and also has a refreshing flavor. It really is an amazing dessert. Luna licked her lips before taking another lick of ice cream, and she was completely intoxicated by its flavor. So sweet. So sweet. So sweet. I feel like I'm in heaven. Ignazio had already devoured most of his chocolate ice cream, and now wore a blissful expression on his chubby little face. He really loved sweet foods, and this chocolate ice cream was the most delicious dessert that he had ever had. Each and every lick brought with it the alluring flavor of chocolate, coupled with a rich milky aroma. The texture was smooth and impeccable, and he felt as if he had been thrown into a jar of honey. It was the feeling of pure bliss. Yummy! Sweet, Parber stood on the ground, and licked the ice cream in his hands. His hand-eye coordination was still a little lacking, so some of the ice cream had been smudged onto his nose and face. He walked around in a wobbly manner as he ate, and before he knew it, he had arrived beside the table upon which the 2 bird cages had been placed. There was an empty little plate in front of Green Pea's birdcage, and it was in the process of arranging its feathers, seemingly disinterested in the ice cream. "Hey, kid, is the ice cream good?" A low voice suddenly sounded from within the cage that was enshrouded by the black cloth. It is." Parber nodded firmly before licking his ice cream again, and a joyful expression appeared on his little face. "I actually have something that's even more delicious than ice cream, do you want it?" The low voice sounded once again. "More delicious than ice cream?" Parber looked at the ice cream in his hands, then at the birdcage, and a hesitant expression appeared on his face. "Indeed. It's right here in this cage. You only have to climb up and take off this black cloth, and I'll give you something even more delicious than ice cream," the voice tempted. "All right." Parber was ecstatic upon hearing that. He looked around, then pulled a chair over, and began to climb onto it. He held his vanilla ice cream in one hand, and reached out with his other hand to grab the black cloth. "Parber, what are you doing?" Miranda was the first one to notice Parber climbing onto the chair, and was a little confused. Everyone else was basking in the delicious flavor of their ice creams, but they also turned to look at Parber upon hearing Miranda's inquisitive words. Amy looked at Parber with a serious expression, and said, "You shouldn't take off that black cloth, otherwise, you might equals." However, before she had a chance to finish her sentence, Parber had already grabbed onto a corner of the black cloth and tugged on it with all his might. The black cloth fell away, revealing an almost featherless black crow in a metal cage. Parber's expression immediately stiffened upon seeing that. "Hey there, little cutie!" Black Coal delivered an enthusiastic greeting. "Wah!" Parber immediately burst into tears as he retreated a couple of steps. The ice cream in his hand wobbled, and the top ball fell off, plummeting toward the ground. "It's shameful to waste food." Black Coal immediately extended its neck, and opened its mouth to catch the ball of ice cream. The ball was about as large as an infant's fist, and it was falling with quite a bit of momentum. It fell straight into Black Coal's mouth before getting stuck in its throat, making it appear as if it had suddenly grown a massive Adam's apple. Amy looked at the bawling Parber, and could only shrug with a resigned expression. "Wow! This bird is so ugly!" Daphne yelled in surprise. She covered her eyes with her hands, and only dared to peek through the gaps between her fingers. "Yeah, and where are its feathers? Why does it have such a massive neck?" Jessica was also slightly appalled. "Am I the only one who thinks that it looks a little adorable? Like the really adorable kind of bird?" Ignazio licked his ice cream while chuckling like a snorting pig. "Glug! Glug!" Black Coal skipped up and down in its cage as if it wanted to console the howling Parber, but the ice cream in its throat was preventing it from formulating any coherent words, which gave it a comical appearance. Miranda slowly made her way over to Parber, and she put on a serious expression as she said, "It's all right, don't cry, men don't cry over little things like this." But, this bird is so ugly." Parber pouted as he pointed at Black Coal. He was trying to suppress his tears as a pitiable expression appeared on his face. "Glug! Glug!" Black Coal stuck its head out from within the cage as if it had something to say. "Parber, it's not right to talk about others like that." Miranda shook her head as she looked at Parber. Black Coal nodded in agreement, and looked at Parber with a smug expression. Miranda continued, "You see, even though it's ugly, it at least has the presence of mind to hide itself beneath that black cloth. You were the one who took off the black cloth, so you can't blame it for scaring you. Splat! Black coal fell back in its cage, and it slowly turned its head to the side as tears of grief flowed from its eyes. A reminder from the system: even though the ingredients sourced by the system are all natural and harmless, ice cream cannot be consumed in large quantities in a single sitting, or digestive problems could ensue. Please restrict the amount of ice cream being consumed by the customers in order to prevent accidents from happening. The system's serious voice sounded. Oh, right, I almost forgot, eating too much ice cream could lead to diarrhea. Mag came to a sudden realization upon hearing that. Following Amy's wheedling request, he had completely forgotten about the potential side effects of eating ice cream. It appeared that he couldn't just let her eat as many as she wanted, after all. System, what is the upper limit on the amount of ice cream a normal person can consume? Mag asked internally. The ice cream was a new product for the restaurant, so he had to work out a restriction on the amount that he could sell to each person. 3 for adults, 2 for children, the system replied. All right, then I'll restrict it to 2 per person. Mag nodded and licked the mocha ice cream in his hand as a joyful smile appeared on his face. It was worth all those days that he had spent in the test field for the god of cookery to be able to create such delicious ice cream. With so many supreme-grade ingredients, the texture of the ice cream was far smoother than even the best ice creams that he had tasted in his past life. Let alone the kids, even he felt like he could eat 10 in a sitting. Father, I want more ice cream. I want the green one this time, the one that has the same color as grass. Amy turned to Mag with an expectant gaze. She had already finished her ice cream and was crunching on the cone, which she found to also be extremely tasty. Mag smiled as he said, "Sure, but you can only eat a maximum of 3 ice creams. I was wrong earlier, the ice cream is too cold, so your tummy might hurt if you eat too much." Amy faltered momentarily upon hearing that before looking at Mag with a pitiable expression as she asked, "So I won't be able to taste one of the flavors?" "Yes, but you'll be able to taste it tonight." Mag nodded in response. His heart was throbbing at the sight of Amy's pitiable expression, and he wanted nothing more than to grab a bunch of ice cream cones and thrust them all at her. However, logic won out over his impulses. In the end he knew that it would not be a good idea to do that. Amy nodded obediently, and hesitated momentarily before deciding, "All right, then. I won't eat the vanilla ice cream. I'll eat the chocolate one as my last one." "All right." Mag nodded with a smile. "Mag, I feel like you were born to cook. You will most definitely be recorded in the Norland continent's history books, and the delicious foods you've invented will change this entire world." Zixi was full of admiration as she looked at Mag, and she said, "Lulu and I have traveled to many places in the past, but we've never tasted such delicious food. You are a culinary genius. You're far too kind. I'm just very lucky, that's all." Mag put on a modest smile in response. He wasn't really interested in changing the world. All he wanted was to become stronger, then cook all types of delicious food for Amy. If it were possible, he would also want to find Amy's mother so she could have a complete set of parents. The ice cream dessert capped off the meal perfectly, providing an incomparable experience that put everyone in an extremely good mood. Verb. I'm so full. I'm so happy. Ignatzu burped as he rubbed his round stomach with a blissful expression on his chubby face. "This is the most delicious meal I've ever had." "Thank you, Amy." Jessica licked the ice cream on her lips as she turned to Amy with a smile. Amy also smiled as she leaned over to Jessica's ear, and whispered, "You're welcome, Jessica. Come play with me more often. That way, you can have more meals with me." "No, I can't do that. Mother says good little girls go home to eat meals, and shouldn't ask for food from other people." Jessica shook her head with a smile, and added, "But I'll still visit and play with you." Luna turned to Rebecca with a smile, and offered, "Jessica's mother, Jessica is at the age where she can attend school as well, right? If you want, I can help with enrollment into Chaos School. For kids her age, school is the best place to be. Thank you, Teacher Luna. It is indeed about time for her to go to school. Before he passed away, her father told me that I have to get her enrolled into Chaos School so she can at least learn to read and write. Rebecca nodded, but her expression was slightly crestfallen as she said, but I really don't have the money to afford tuition at the moment, so I'll have to wait until later. That's all right. Jessica is a really smart little girl, so she'll definitely be able to catch up even if she starts a little late. Luna looked at the dejected Rebecca with a hint of sympathy in her eyes. As a single mother, it was already difficult for her and her daughter to survive, let alone pay for her daughter to go to school. Mag looked over at Jessica, who was playing joyfully with Amy and the other little kids. Indeed, at her age, school was the ideal place for her. It was far better than begging on the streets or doing repetitive, monotonous jobs at home. Accumulation of knowledge was an imperative if Jessica wanted to pursue her dreams in the future. After the delicious meal, Yabimiya took the little kids out to play with Amy's new kite, while Sally stayed behind to clean up. Zixi stood up with Lulu, and she looked at Mag with a smile as she said, "Thank you for inviting us to enjoy such a delicious meal today, Mag. I thoroughly enjoyed all of your dishes. I have to go back to the shop, and Lulu also has to go back to work, so we'll be taking our leave now." "No problem. Come over again sometime." Mag nodded with a smile. Zixi and Lulu then bade farewell to everyone else before leaving the restaurant. Luna also stood up, and said, "Mr. Mag, I also have some things that I have to do this afternoon, so I'll be taking my leave as well. Thank you very much for today." "You're very welcome, Ms. Luna. I hope to see you again soon." Mag nodded with a smile. Luna turned to leave before turning around again with a hesitant expression. After contemplating momentarily, she asked, "I have a question, Mr. Mag. You can choose whether you'd like to answer or not. May I ask what kind of green tea you put into the mocha ice cream?" "It's a type of tea leaf known as Longjing green tea, a type of tea that only I'm familiar with," Mag replied with a smile. "Longjing. What a unique name. Looks like this is one of your secrets, so I won't pry. My grandfather really likes to drink tea, and I imagine he would really enjoy your mocha ice cream too." Luna gave him a polite smile, and nodded before departing. "Your little friends were all very happy because you took good care of them." Mag stroked Amy's hair with a smile. Even though throwing a party on his day off was a little tiring, it was all worth it when he saw the smile on Amy's face. Amy's smile became even more vibrant upon hearing that, and she excitedly rattled off all of the presents that she had received to Mag. Some of the presents were quite valuable, like the gold bracelet, while other ones included things like freshly picked wild flowers. However, Amy treasured every one of them equally. Mag was quite happy to see that. The thought behind a present was the most important factor, one that far outweighed its objective value. It was quite pleasing that Amy was already able to understand this concept, and that she was aware of what Jessica's purple crystal entailed. He held Amy in his arms and sat at the restaurant entrance for a while. After playing around with her little friends, Amy was already exhausted, and she soon nodded off in his warm embrace. Mag looked down at the sleeping Amy, and a warm smile appeared on his face. "Boss really is a good father. If only I had a father like him. I've never met my father, and I don't even know his name. I wonder if he held me even once before he left." Yabimiya stared at Amy and Mag with a hint of envy in her eyes. Mag carefully carried Amy upstairs before tucking her into bed. When he came back downstairs, he discovered Yabimiya looking down at her fingers, seemingly in deep thought. He was just about to say something when Yabimiya abruptly raised her head, and her expression suggested that she had mustered up a lot of courage as she said, "Boss, can you become my father?" "Ha!" Mag's eyes widened, and he stared at Yabimiya with astonishment etched on his face. Yabimiya was 17 years old, but he was only in his early 30s. She wanted him to be her father? I see you as a friend, but you see me as your father? Mag's composure was completely thrown off, and he scrambled for a way to diplomatically turn down Yabimiya's strange request. Boss, it's not what you think. What I'm saying is, can you hug me as a father, just like how you hug Amy? Yabimiya also quickly realized that she had misspoken, and a faint blush appeared on her face. She hurriedly waved her hands, and hung her head with embarrassment as she whispered, I don't think my father has ever held me. A father's embrace must be very warm, right? Sally was just about to walk out of the kitchen when she stopped in her tracks. She looked at Yabimiya through the kitchen window, and her heart throbbed with sympathy for her. Ever since they had been confronted by that frost dragon girl that night, Yabimiya had been in a peculiar emotional state. She tried her best not to show it, but Sally had noticed during the past few days that Yabimiya would often space out and stare into the distance with a forlorn expression. Looks like Mia still really yearns for acknowledgement, regardless of whether that acknowledgement comes from a human or a dragon. It's just that with her half-dragon bloodline, there's no way that the dragon race can accept her with open arms. Sally heaved an internal sigh as she turned her attention to Mag's expression gradually softened as he looked at Yabimiya, and he hesitated momentarily before placing his hand gently on Yabimiya's head. He smiled, and said, Trust me, Mia, your father will come to find you someday, and when that time comes, he will give you a warm embrace. That will be a true fatherly embrace. Yabimiya slowly raised her head, and her expression gradually became more resolute as she looked into Mag's gentle eyes. She nodded firmly, and replied, Thank you, boss. I also believe that he'll come back for me. Boss really is a good person. I wonder what kind of elf had Amy with him, and why aren't they living together? Sally was quite moved by the gentle expression on Mag's face. Mag consoled Yabimiya before announcing, Oh, by the way, I have something to tell you too. Tonight, we're going to have customers who are reserving the entire restaurant. If you two don't have anything else to do tonight, can you put in an extra shift? You'll be getting penalty rates for your efforts. They reserved the whole restaurant? But boss, I thought you don't offer that service. Yabimiya was quite perplexed as she looked at Mag. She still remembered how he had rejected Skonard when the latter had made the same request. Sally was also looking at Mag with a hint of curiosity on her face. She was wondering what kind of person Mag would make such an exception for. Mag looked at the two of them, and explained, The city lord is the one who reserved the restaurant. Tonight, the conference between the dragons and the demons will be held here, with the city lord's castle as the mediating third party. Our opening hours will remain the same as usual. I wouldn't normally allow people to reserve the restaurant, as it would deprive other customers of the chance to dine here, and very few people would be able to afford the reservation fee anyway. However, the circumstances are quite special this time. I want to rent the plot of land outside the restaurant to set up an outdoor dining area, and if we get the nod from the city lord's castle, it'll make the application process a lot easier. The city lord reserved our restaurant? And our customers are powerful beings from the dragon and demon races. Yabimiya's eyes widened with disbelief. The conference between the dragons and the demons must be revolving around their territorial conflict again. It's very surprising that the city lord would set our Mamie restaurant as the conference venue, though. I don't think there has ever been a precedent for this. Sally was also in disbelief. The elves and the human also had ongoing territorial conflicts, and Chaos City had acted as the mediator on many occasions. As such, she was quite familiar with conferences of this nature as her father had been an elven representative during several of those conferences in the past. All of the representatives were at least 9th-tier powerful beings. I'm really sorry to make you two work on your day off. As penalty rates, you'll be getting 3 times your normal wage. At the same time, you can choose to have anything you want for dinner tonight. Mag nodded with a hint of apology on his face. Making people work on their day off was quite vexing, after all. Yabimiya hurriedly shook her head, and said, "There's nothing you need to apologize for, boss. I have nothing to do today anyway, so I'm more than happy to work. I don't need 3 times the normal wage, just the normal wage is fine." Sally smiled, and chimed in, "I have to make a trip home first, but I'll be back before 5 p.m. I'm fine with normal wages as well." So this is Chaos City? As expected of the only city comparable to Rodu on the Norland continent. I can see beings of all species here, what an interesting city this is. In a lavish carriage constructed from green tree branches, Blower looked outside at the beings entering and exiting from the city gates, and a smile appeared on his handsome face. The carriage was being drawn by 2 brown fallow deer far taller than the average horse, a pair of large black antlers on each of their heads. As such, they made for quite a visual spectacle. "That elven woman is so beautiful." "She sure is. Look at that pretty face. I've seen elves in the past, but I've never seen such a beautiful one before." The eyes of the passers-by lit up at the sight of Blower in the carriage, and they all discussed quietly among themselves. F***ck off. That's a F***ing man. Are you all blind? A middle-aged dwarf pursed his lips and grumbled. However, as he turned away, he murmured to himself, "But he sure is F***ing beautiful for a man. Sigh, my exquisite beauty always attracts so much attention. How annoying." Blower heaved a resigned sigh, and sat back in the carriage as he slowly closed his eyes. The young mistress of the Brewster family is working as a waitress in a small restaurant? If word of this were to spread, I wonder how those old farts waiting for her to go back and replace Princess Irina would react, Blower murmured to himself. The carriage slowly travelled along the street, and he yawned before shaking his head as he continued, "Forget about it. I'm going to sleep for 2 entire days once we reach our destination. Nothing can get in the way of my beauty sleep." "City Lord, we've gathered some information regarding Woodrow's case. He has embezzled a staggering amount of compensation funds designated for families of deceased miners, and allowed his nephew, Warwick, to commit countless heinous crimes against the residents in that area. There are more than 50 residents who have been killed by them, over 35 of whom were women, and over 5 of whom were children below 10 years of age. The compensation funds embezzled by Woodrow number in excess of 6 million copper coins. Those are only the statistics that we have gathered from our preliminary investigation. As we delve deeper into the matter, I'm afraid those figures will only continue to increase." In the city lord's castle, an official was delivering a report to Michael, and both of them wore grave expressions as they tried to repress their shock and rage. Another official quickly rushed in, and reported, "City Lord, the Palace Lord has already signed these documents. Aside from the elders who are currently conducting other investigations, the remaining 10 elders have formed a team to assist our City Lord's castle with our investigation into this case." Michael clenched his fists with a thunderous expression, and commanded, "Tell them to begin the investigation right now. Let me see just how many of these bastards are lurking in Chaos City. I want to see just how much of these heinous crimes is being committed right under my nose." "Yes." That official immediately rushed outside to relay Michael's orders. The city lord had been truly enraged this time, and some massive changes were about to strike Chaos City. Michael turned to the other official, and instructed, "Keep up the investigation surrounding Woodrow. Even though it's already too late to uphold justice for all of his victims, we have to show the rest of the city that we will be exercising a zero-tolerance policy against people like him. Tally up all of the embezzled compensation funds, and allocate twice that amount to all of the families that have missed out on them. At the same time, provide extra compensation to the families of Warwick's and Woodrow's victims." "Yes." That official nodded before quickly exiting the room. If it weren't for Mag stepping in today to save that widow and her daughter, these things would still be happening every single day, completely unbeknownst to me. As expected, making the world a better place is no easy task. Just Chaos City alone has so many issues that need to be ironed out, it's going to be countless times more difficult to implement these changes across the entire Norland continent. Michael made his way over to the window, and fell into deep thought as he stared out into the distance. Come to think of it, I really have to thank Mag for exposing all of this and bringing it to my attention. At the very least, it gave the City Lord's castle a chance to rectify the issue before it became too late. Michael thought back to that night, when the restaurant owner had rejected him despite learning of the fact that he was the City Lord. He was a very interesting man indeed. After cleaning up the restaurant, both Sally and Yabimiya left to go home to make some preparations before the dinner service that night. As for the penalty rates, Mag didn't force the issue. He would just have to put a bonus into their monthly salaries. In any case, those costs had already been accounted for in the reservation fees that he was charging the City Lord's castle. Mag sat down onto a chair, and instructed internally, "System, update the menu. Put the ice cream onto the menu, and list the price as 200 copper coins per 2-ball ice cream cone, with 4 flavors available. Also, adjust the categories on the menu to entrees, mains, desserts, beverages. Categorize all of the dishes accordingly." Another reminder from the system: adding new dishes onto the menu is already quite a difficult task, categorizing them is too much. The system's stern voice sounded. Mag pursed his lips, and asked, "Tisk, all right, how much money do you want this time? 10 copper coins, 100 copper coins? Or maybe 1,000 copper coins? Please don't use money to insult me, the system is not that kind of system. For a limited time, the price of 1,000 copper coins will be slashed down to 998. Just 998. A comprehensive menu adjustment package is being offered for one simple installment of 998. The system's vehement voice erupted, and Mag felt as if there was a surround sound system blaring at him in full force. "System, turn off your crappy sound system. I'm about to go deaf." Mag furrowed his brows. As expected, the system didn't have any shame. The system immediately launched into an indignant tirade. "This is the new 5D surround sound system that I invented. It provides superb sound quality. How about you categorize the menu first?" Mag cut it off before it could finish its long spiel. The system was silent for a moment before continuing, "Please do not cut off the system next time. That throws off my language coordination, and is also very disrespectful. Do you want the money or not?" Mag was getting a little impatient. "Of course, appropriate interjection is fine. That's beneficial to forging a good relationship between the two of us," the system conceded. "Hurry up." Mag pursed his lips with furrowed brows. The menu adjustment package includes 1 menu categorization service, 5 free slots for new dishes, and a lifetime menu quality maintenance card, which applies, but is not limited, to the 16 menus that the restaurant currently has. You can also consider the VIP menu adjustment package, which includes no extra costs for the future additions of new dishes, free adjustments to menu categorization, and images added to the menus for each dish. That package costs only 1,998 copper coins, the system replied. "Images for the dishes." Mag's eyes lit up upon hearing that. That was not a bad suggestion. The dishes on the menu were still very different compared to the dishes in this world, so it was difficult for customers to formulate a mental image just from seeing the names of the dishes alone. That process would be made a lot more straightforward with accompanying images for the dishes, and could prove to be very helpful. "System, isn't 1,998 too much? Just give me a half-price discount, and lower it to 998, Mag urged. "This is already a once-in-a-lifetime super discounted price. The system is literally incurring losses by offering such a ridiculously low price. And yet, you're still bartering with me." The system's grief-stricken voice erupted as it said, "Also, even if a half-price discount is given, that would still be 999, not 998. How could you just wipe away an entire copper coin just like that? You earn hundreds of thousands of copper coins per day, why are you getting so worked up over one copper coin? Mags lifted an eyebrow. He was unable to understand why the system was so greedy sometimes. Do you really think the system earns that much from selling dishes? In this production line, it's vegetable farmers like us who have the hardest job for the least profit margin. Does it not require money to breed the best seeds? Does it not require money to build high-tech plantations? Does it not require money to construct marine farms? Does it not require money to transport the ingredients? The green peas are sold to you for 10 per 10 copper coins, and I only earn 1 copper coin from that. Those 10 peas take several months to be produced, and I only select the very best among them to be supplied to the restaurant. In order to ensure the freshness of the ingredients, the highest caliber of spatial transportation technology is employed. From the production site to your fridge, I've worked hard every step of the way. So please do not look down on 1 copper coin. It is a manifestation of my blood, sweat, and tears. A hint of guilt welled up in Mag's heart as he listened to the system's vehement voice. However, he then suddenly came to a realization, and a peculiar look appeared on his face as he said, "You did plant the vegetables, and bred the fish, shrimp, chicken, and ducks, but you're no vegetable farmer. You didn't have to do any of the hard work yourself, but here you are, giving me this epic sob story. I almost believed your lies." Ahem, the system cleared its throat awkwardly before continuing, "In any case, the VIP package costs 1,998. You get carefully selected images, enhanced categorization, and many other benefits. The menu is the face of the restaurant, so the VIP is absolutely mandatory to improve the customer experience. 998, non-negotiable." Mag didn't back down in the slightest. 999. "I won't accept anything less." The system's tone made it sound like it was making a massive concession. 998, 999. The system still wasn't willing to concede. It was getting a little angry as it said, "You earn over 1,000,000 copper coins per day, is there really a need for you to argue with me over 1 copper coin? Do you know how much work I have to do to supply the VIP package? Taking and selecting the images, formatting the menu, adding additional pages. Everything requires work. Why can't you concede even a single copper coin? I worked hard for all of that money. I didn't know how hard earning money was in my past life, and only now do I understand that money cannot be spent carelessly. As such, I'm not paying anything over 998 copper coins." Mag was very determined. The system was silent for a long while before heaving a resigned sigh, and conceding, "Fine, 998 for the VIP menu adjustment package." "Good. You may begin now, system." An elated smile appeared on Mag's face. Even though it was only a discount of 1 copper coins, he felt as if he had earned 1,000,000 copper coins. "Don't be too sad. I should have enough money to purchase a second strength at the close of business tomorrow, so we'll be able to upgrade the restaurant tomorrow." Mag offered some consolation to the system. "You've made a wise choice." As expected, the system really did sound more enthusiastic all of a sudden. "So, are you planning on gifting the menu adjustment package to me for free?" Mag asked with a smile. Ding! 998 copper coins have been successfully deducted. The VIP menu adjustment package has already been sent, and no refunds are accepted. The system's notification immediately sounded. Mag shook his head in a resigned manner. The system really was very greedy. He went through all of the menu templates that had appeared in his mind, and chose the simplest one. There was the name and price, accompanied by a small image, with no other special effects or descriptions. Ding! The menu template has been successfully chosen. The menu is currently being made, and will be ready in 5 minutes. The system's notification sounded. Good. Mag nodded, and got up to prepare the restaurant for the upcoming conference. Ideally, a large round table would be really awesome for the conference, but the system's 10,000 copper coin renting price made him immediately lose interest. Incurring excessively high costs went against his money-making philosophy. After standing at the center of the restaurant and contemplating for a while, Mag organized the dining tables into 5 rows, with about 2 meters in between each row. At the very front, there was a table for the mediators. It was a simple yet practical arrangement which ensured that all participants had a table, and the distance of 2 meters provided sufficient personal space. The superfluous tables and chairs were moved to a corner, and it was still quite a spacious arrangement in the end. That looks good. Hopefully, they'll be quite diplomatic during the conference, and won't damage the restaurant. Mag was a little concerned. Neither the giant dragons nor demons were benevolent species. If an altercation broke out and they got physical, his restaurant would not be able to handle it. After arranging the dining tables, Mag went into the kitchen to prepare the required ingredients. Michael was not a foolish city lord. He definitely had his considerations for selecting Mamie Restaurant as the conference venue and accepting so many of his conditions. It definitely wasn't because his grilled fish could alleviate his daughter's condition. Instead, the restaurant had to be somehow conducive to a positive result being reached in this conference. The only standout feature of Mamie Restaurant that differentiated it from all other restaurants was its food. Mag was very much aware of that. The sun began to set, and a 100-meter-long golden dragon slowly glided over the Aden Square. The light of the setting sun shone down upon its back, reflecting rays of dazzling golden light, while countless people in the square looked up from below with amazement in their eyes. This is the place, right? The golden dragon's gaze fell on Mamie Restaurant, which was located in the corner of the Aden Square. It withdrew its massive wings, and a golden light flashed, upon which it transformed into a muscular man in a golden armor. It plummeted as straight as an arrow from an altitude of over 100 meters, landing directly outside Mamie Restaurant's entrance with a resounding boom. Bam! An enormous muffled thump erupted along with a burst of violent tremors. A crater over half a meter in depth was stomped into the ground outside the restaurant, and it was as if Mabai was up to his old experiments again. Beside the restaurant, the shops that Mabai had just repaired a few days ago shuddered, and it appeared as if they were going to collapse at any moment. All of the passers-by turned to look at the giant dragon with shock etched on their faces, wondering why he had descended here. Could it be that Mamie Restaurant had somehow drawn his ire? What was that? In the kitchen, Mag also looked outside with a hint of surprise on his face. The tremors weren't especially pronounced in the restaurant, but he was still curious to see who was causing such a ruckus. Is someone trying to stir up trouble? But isn't the city lord's castle reserving our restaurant today? Yabimiya stared out the door also with shock on her face. There was a cloud of dust and debris wafting around outside the floor-to-ceiling window, obscuring her field of vision, and making her unable to see who the intruder was. It's a giant dragon, a very powerful one, Sally whispered. She could sense the aura of the giant dragon, and determined that it was at least a 9th-tier powerhouse. It was most likely here to partake in the conference today. Is this Mamie Restaurant? Why did Chaos City choose such a small restaurant? Are they looking down on us giant dragons? The burly armor-clad man stepped out of the crater. He appeared to be around 40 years of age, his face was very broad and angular, and even his eyebrows were of a hard rectangular shape. His cropped golden hair shimmered under the light of the setting sun as if strands of pure gold, and his muscular body was full of explosive power. Tisk, Jinx, when will you learn to make an arrival like a gentleman? Right at that moment, a slightly dark voice sounded. A massive black bat came gliding down from above before withdrawing its wings, upon which a figure gently landed in front of the restaurant. He looked at the armor-clad man with a slightly resigned expression, and said, "We're here for a conference, not a war. Your entrance doesn't make you look powerful, it only makes you look like a foolish low-level magic beast." The new arrival was a man in a set of black robes, with a long black cape draped over his shoulders. He had a tall and slender figure, and appeared to be around 30 years of age. The bridge of his nose was very pronounced, and above that nose was a pair of sapphire blue eyes. His slick hair had been neatly swept back, and he had one hand clasped behind his back, which was as straight as a ramrod. He did appear to be quite gentlemanly in demeanor, but the complete lack of color on his face was slightly jarring, and one could just make out two sharp little fangs between his lips. "Dracula, you're just as annoying as ever, I see. Do you want to taste my fist today as well?" Jinx looked at the pale young man as he stepped forward, and a series of cracks and pops sounded from the joints of his clenched fists. "The blood of golden dragons carries the rotten flavor of money, so I really would rather not taste your fist. Otherwise, as a gentleman, it would be my obligation to satisfy your request, and suck away all of your blood." Dracula shook his head in an apologetic manner as he looked at Jinx. "You sure can talk. Vampires are one of the top 10 demon subspecies, but no 10th tier powerful beings have emerged from your ranks in recent times, right? The lava demons also declined steadily like this before falling from grace. Are you vampires going to follow in their footsteps?" Right at that moment, a cold voice sounded. A vast expanse of snowflakes suddenly appeared in the air, and a figure draped in a silver cape silently appeared with a cold expression on his face. "F***CKU, Fox. You tried to sneak attack me last time. I'm going to kick you in the nuts until they explode." A violent voice erupted, and a portly figure sprang up from a gigantic black beast nearby. It shot forth like a black iron ball straight toward Fox, who'd just arrived. It sure is lively here. Should I join in as well? But if we destroy the Aiden Square, City Lord Michael is going to be furious." A fire dragon over 100 meters in length appeared in the air, and surveyed the situation down below with relish. The space warped and twisted before a demon with 8 black spider legs and a human's upper body emerged. He looked at the fire dragon, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. "Long time no see, Havid. I didn't think you would be one of the giant dragon representatives this time. What? You wanna fight me again, Gustav? If you don't go fleeing with your spatial magic, I won't mind having a battle with you." Havid looked at the demon in front him, and battle intent erupted in his red eyes as he prepared for a fight. "I'm not here to fight you this time. If you want to fight, there are many opportunities to do so after the conference." Gustav shook his head before looking down at the round ball that was flying toward Fox. A hint of disdain appeared on his face, and he said, "That bastard Tauros was never the brightest bulb in the box. But then again, his abyss race all seem to be idiots. Looks like you didn't learn your lesson last time. You're initiating the fight this time, so prepare to feel my wrath." Fox looked at the black ball that was hurtling toward him, only to find that sharp spikes had appeared all over the assailant's body. Each and every one of the spikes was over a meter in length, and the ball was quickly spinning as it flew toward him as if it were a rotating sea urchin. True meaning of ice, domain. Fox raised his hand, and a bright silver light appeared on the palm of his hand, which transformed into a cuboid frozen space in front of him. The surface of that space quickly froze solid, trapping the black ball within. The black ball rotated in a frenzy within the frozen space, creating an ear-splitting noise, and the frozen space began to tremor violently, but it showed no signs of breaking. "You piece of sh*t! Let me out and fight me fair and square." Tauro's enraged voice sounded from within the frozen space. "Idiots like you should just stay in this ice cube. We don't need you for the conference today, anyway." Fox chuckled coldly as he continued to control his domain of ice and frost. Ding! Right at that moment, the restaurant's door slowly opened, and a little girl with slightly bleary eyes emerged from within. She was holding an orange kitten, and she looked at the crater in the ground, then at the dragons and demons in the sky, and her drowsiness was instantly washed away. Her eyes widened with excitement as she turned around, and yelled, "Look, father, it's a giant dragon that's on fire! Fire! Everyone instantly fell silent. All of the giant dragons and demons turned their attention to Amy with surprise and befuddlement on their faces. Why was there a little girl at their conference venue? And she appeared to be a half-elf girl as well. Even Tauros and Fox, who were still engaged in battle, both stopped what they were doing. Please continue. Don't mind me, I only just woke up, and I'm here to spectate, not mediate. I've never seen giant dragons and demons fight before. Amy waved her little hands before rushing back into the restaurant and quickly bringing out a little stool. She sat down on it with Ugly Duckling in her lap, and looked on with excitement sparkling in her eyes. Meow! Ugly Duckling cried as it extended its little paws fearlessly as if it were trying to put on a menacing display. Everyone's eyes widened upon seeing that. Not only were the little girl and the kitten not fearful of them in the slightest, she was telling them to continue. Even the heated Tauros and Fox suddenly lost the urge to battle. The domain of ice and frost shattered, while the spiky ball reverted back into a burly middle-aged man clad in a suit of black spiky armor, with a massive black axe that was as tall as an adult human in his hands. The fire dragon in the sky withdrew its wings, and fell from the sky like a shooting star, upon which it transformed into a tall and thin fiery humanoid being. His face was fiery red, and there were flames dancing in his eyes as well as fire burning all over his body. The half-spider spatial demon also appeared on the ground, and transformed into a bald midget that was about half the height of an adult human. He was hovering half a meter in the air, but his clothes were very long, and trailed onto the ground, presenting a rather peculiar sight. The three giant dragons and the three demons faced one another with hostility in their eyes, but none of them attacked. Thus, a peculiar silence ensued. Amy looked on with intrigue for a long while, but the two sides remained completely stationary. Her face fell slightly upon seeing that, and she asked, "Are you going to fight or not? If not, I have to go back for dinner." "You're a very adorable little girl." Dracula turned to Amy, and he couldn't help but smile, revealing a pair of sharp fangs. Amy looked at Dracula with an earnest expression, and asked, "You're also very adorable, Uncle Bat. Especially those sharp teeth, are they for eating meat?" Dracula's expression stiffened slightly upon seeing Amy's earnest expression. Normally, little kids would be frightened to the point of shedding tears upon seeing his sharp fangs, but this little girl was referring to them as adorable. The nickname, Uncle Bat, was a little strange, but it actually sounded quite appealing when she said it. "These are not for eating meat, they're for sucking blood. They are the pride of us vampires, and I can suck away all of the blood in a human's body in just 1 second." Dracula refused to believe that there could be a kid in this world that wasn't scared of him. "Wow, that's so cool." Amy's eyes lit up as she looked at Dracula with admiration on her little face. "See cool? Are you not scared of me, little girl? I can suck human blood." Dracula's eyes widened with shock. This little girl's reflex arc appeared to be a little different from that of other kids. Amy shook her head, and replied, "Mosquitoes can suck blood as well, but I'm not scared of them. I just have to slap them with my hand, and they would be dead, so they're not scary at all." "What? You're comparing me to lowly mosquitoes? I'm a revered vampire." Dracula stared at Amy with incredulity, but he was a gentleman who had learned to control his emotions, so he didn't launch into a violent tirade. "Then, are you a massive mosquito, Uncle Bat?" Amy was genuinely curious. "Pfff." Dracula threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing that. "Are you all right, Uncle Bat? You should suck that blood back up. Otherwise, it would be a waste of the lunch you ate." Amy was quite concerned as she looked at the puddle of blood in front of Dracula. "Pff." Dracula couldn't help but throw up another mouthful of blood. "It's all right, throwing up 2 mouthfuls of blood never killed anyone." Amy gave Dracula a comforting smile, and said, "Besides, our restaurant doesn't sell blood, but my father's cooking is definitely more delicious than blood. As a revered vampire, I definitely won't eat any human food. Dracula calmed himself down before appraising Amy with a haughty expression. That's a pity, then. I thought only idiots would refuse my father's food. Amy shrugged with a forlorn expression. Dracula could feel his blood churning in his chest, and he was struck by the urge to throw up another mouthful of blood. If it weren't for the genuinely forlorn expression on Amy's little face, he would definitely be convinced that she was insulting him. Even though her words did sound like an insult, that was clearly not her intention, so he didn't have an excuse to flare up with rage. Being a gentleman sure is difficult. Dracula looked up into the sky, and heaved a resigned sigh. Ha ha ha, you sure are an adorable little girl. Jinx was very pleased as he turned his attention to Amy. He was always losing in wars of words with Dracula, so it was very satisfying to see him being defeated by a little girl. Thank you, Uncle Goldwire. Is your hair made from real gold? Why does it stand up like a hedgehog's spikes? When you're out on the streets, aren't you afraid that someone would rob you for your hair? Amy turned to Jinx with curiosity on her face. Jinx's smile immediately froze on his face. Amy's questions were all very sharp, and he suddenly understood why Dracula was throwing up mouthfuls of blood. Uncle Spider, why are your clothes so long? They actually make you look even shorter that way. Uncle Hedgehog, your piggy steed was stomped into the ground by you just then, and it still hasn't reappeared yet. Don't play such dangerous games next time so the poor little piggy doesn't get hurt again. Don't you know how heavy you are? Uncle Snowman, your magic spell was really awesome, but compared to my master, you're nothing special. Uncle Fireman, did you eat chili peppers before you came here? Why is your body constantly on fire? You can't come into the restaurant like that. Amy delivered her critique on every single person, and her little face was alight with the joy of meeting new friends. Everyone wore peculiar expressions on their faces, and they didn't know how to respond to Amy's unintentionally barbed. Ahem, my apologies, Amy is still just a little girl, so please forgive her if she offended you. Mag quickly emerged from the restaurant, and looked at everyone with an apologetic expression. He didn't expect Amy to roast everyone in such a straightforward manner. These were all powerhouses from the dragon and demon species, and it was not a good idea to offend them. So do you plan on taking this attack for her, or is her master that is supposedly far more powerful than me going to show himself? Fox glared coldly at Mag, and an ice crystal dragon materialized beneath his feet before pouncing toward Mag. You're going too far, Fox. She's just a little girl. What you're doing is not very gentlemanly. Dracula pursed his lips as he looked at Fox. He turned his attention to the ice crystal dragon, and a black staff appeared in his hand as he prepared to step in. Mag looked at the oncoming ice crystal dragon, and his eyes narrowed as his expression cooled. He didn't think that Fox would actually attack them. At his current power level, there was no way that he would be able to combat a 9th-tier assailant. He used his body to shield Amy, contemplating how he could get out of his sticky situation. However, he couldn't think of any way for him to survive this ordeal unless the city lord or Urian stepped in. Watch out! Sally let loose a cry of surprise, and she raised a hand, upon which 2 pillars of water shot forth from within the restaurant to meet the oncoming ice crystal dragon. Boss! Amy! Yabimiya also hurried out from the restaurant with a panicked expression. I'm going too far? The pride of the frost dragons cannot be defiled by others. She's just a half-elf, a lowly half-breed. Her existence is nothing but a mistake. Fox looked at Amy with a frosty, disdainful expression. A mistake? Yabimiya felt as if she had been dealt a heavy blow upon hearing that. She had heard similar scathing remarks many times in the past, but it was especially brutal to her hearing it from a giant dragon. In that instant, she felt as if something in her heart had suddenly shattered. That's an overstatement, Fox. We golden dragons have never regarded half-breeds as lowly creatures. Rankster is a half-breed born to a golden dragon and a frost dragon, but he still became your chief. Jinx furrowed his brows with displeasure as he looked at Fox. Fox ignored Jinx, and focused his attention on Meg. Even though killing someone in Chaos City could present some complications, he had a reason for killing Meg and his daughter, so there shouldn't be any issues. With his lofty status as a 9th-tier frost dragon, no one would be able to do anything to him. Sally's twin pillars of water crashed into the ice crystal dragon, upon which a dull thump erupted, but the ice dragon continued onward with unstoppable force. The pillars of water weren't even able to slow it down in the slightest. Dracula took a glance at Fox before raising his staff, upon which black light began to emanate from its tip. The ice crystal dragon was already too close to Meg and his daughter, so he couldn't ensure that they weren't harmed, but he could only do his best. "What gives you the right to attack my disciple?" Right at that moment, a husky voice exploded like a clap of thunder around everyone. The air temperature plummeted, and the flames around Havid's body were instantly snuffed out, leaving him to tremble in the cold. The ice crystal dragon stopped cold in its tracks less than a meter away from Meg as if it had been forced to a standstill by some sort of invisible force. "You! Urian!" Fox's eyes widened with incredulity as Urian strode out from the nearby magic potion shop. Bam! A resounding boom erupted, and the ice crystal dragon was reduced to shards of ice. At the same time, Urian appeared in front of Meg in the blink of an eye. "I haven't seen you in many years, but you're just as useless as before, Fox." Urian narrowed his eyes as he looked at Fox, and said coldly, "Was my disciple wrong? Is there a small or large disparity between you and me?" All of the giant dragons and demons stared at Urian with shock and wariness on their faces. He was a 10th-tier magic caster, the Lord of Ice, Urian. In this world, powerful beings with nothing to lose were the most terrifying entities. Unfortunately for Fox, Urian was one of those powerful beings. The other one was his lifelong rival, Krasu. Those two were known as the magic casters that one absolutely could not afford to offend, as they had nothing to fear. It was rumored that the two of them had accepted the same disciple recently, and Urian had just referred to that half-elf girl as his disciple, which entailed that she was also Krasu's disciple. A bone-chilling aura enveloped everyone present, and no one dared to move. Even though they were only one tier below Urian, they had to admit that they had all been struck by an inevitable sense of impending doom. That was the disparity between a magic caster at the pinnacle of the 10th tier and a 9th tier powerful being. In the face of a long-range magic caster, none of them could ensure that they would be able to strike him down before he could attack. Fox's face was a little pale. He had also heard that Urian had accepted a disciple in Chaos City, but all of his attention had been focused on the conflict between the dragons and the demons, as well as tracking Elizabeth, so he wasn't aware of where Urian was residing, nor who his disciple was. However, he had never thought that it would be a half-elf. One had to realize that all half-breeds had appalling aptitude, while Urian and Krasu were the most stringent with their requirements when picking a disciple among all magic casters. Mag heaved a sigh of relief at the sight of Urian. At the same time, he slowly clenched his fists as a determined look appeared on his face. He had to become stronger as quickly as possible. That way, he would be the one protecting Amy next time. "Master Turtle, this Uncle Snowman is a bad person. He tried to hurt Amy." Amy poked her head out from behind Mag, and pointed directly at Fox. Fox looked at Urian, and slowly withdrew his hands as he said, "Greetings, Urian. I didn't know that she was your disciple. Seeing as that's the case, then I'll let bygones be bygones. Us frost dragons are not unreasonable creatures, after all. Urian, this is just a misunderstanding. I respect you as my elder, and you have close ties to us frost dragons as well, so I hope we can resolve this matter in a peaceful manner. I'm here as a representative of the giant dragons to attend this conference today, and I have no intention of fighting you here." Fox's expression remained calm and collected, but his hands were trembling beneath his wide sleeves. He wore an extremely wary expression, and his back was slightly arched as if he were preparing to spring into action at any moment. Meanwhile, Dracula and the others all took a couple of steps backward, and they were also looking at Urien with caution in their eyes. They had heard many legends about this Lord of Ice, and they knew that those so-called legends were not just tall tales. He had hunted down all of the ogres on the entire continent until their extinction, and even to this very day, no ogre sightings had been reported since then. The ogres were a very powerful species that was very close in power to the top 10 demon subspecies. However, one man managed to commit mass genocide, and wipe out their entire species. Of course, it was said that Krasu had also participated in that massacre. However, all of the ogres were dead, and Urien never mentioned that event, so no one knew what the truth actually was. But one thing was for sure, those two were certainly not benevolent old men. They could be the most cold-blooded murderers on the entire continent when they wanted to. Even the former king of the Frost Dragons, Rankster, had to admit that Urien's ice magic was superior to his. Fox was indeed a representative of the dragon species who was going to participate in the upcoming conference, but would Urien spare him for that reason? Everyone looked at Urien with uneasiness in their eyes. Urien had nothing to lose in the past, but he had a disciple now, which had become his one and only weakness. As such, it would not be wise for him to offend the giant dragons. So what? Are they going to gather a bunch of old blokes and risk their lives to kill me just for your sake? Urien looked at Fox with a mocking smile before slamming him into the ground with a single palm. He then used the back of his hand to smack Fox repeatedly on the face as he said, "Rankster was a lot more polite to me than you are. That guy knows his limits, and after I crushed him once, he never dared to oppose me again. Looks like you haven't learned his lesson." Fox's body was completely immobilized, and he was utterly flabbergasted. In the instant that Urien raised his hand, Fox had formulated countless strategies in his mind to oppose him, but before he could implement any of them, his body had been frozen solid. This was a domain that was of a higher caliber than his domain of ice and frost, and in this space, he felt like a defenseless infant that anyone could easily slaughter. Master Urien is so awesome. Amy clapped her little hands together. She had been completely won over by Urien's absolute crushing might. What powerful magic manipulation! What is there above the 10th tier? This is definitely not power that should belong to a 10th tier magic caster. Fox himself is close to the 10th tier, after all, but he's being completely dominated. Havid retreated a bit further, and the flames around his body that had been snuffed out finally showed signs of igniting again. Even my spatial magic wouldn't be able to escape his domain. No wonder all of the old monsters told us not to mess with Urien and Krasu. These two are unfathomably powerful to normal magic casters. No wonder the entire ogre species was wiped out by them. Gustav was also staring at Urien with a fearful expression, and he unconsciously also retreated further away, trying to open up some distance between himself and Urien. As expected, being a gentleman is the way to go, especially to adorable little girls. Dracula stowed away his black staff and nodded to himself. In this world, power is paramount. Power is the foundation of freedom and safety, so I must become more powerful as quickly as possible. Mag fell deep in thought as he looked at Urien. There were still many things that he wanted to do aside from running this restaurant, and all of those endeavors required him to become more powerful. Fox had been toppled by a single palm before being slapped repeatedly, and burning rage was coursing through his veins. However, he had been completely immobilized, unable to move as much as a single finger, so he was also quite fearful in his heart. As such, there was a mixture of fury and horror in his eyes as he glared at Urien. I've only accepted one disciple in my entire life, and if anyone dares to try and hurt her, then they're trying to hurt me. Anyone who has tried to hurt me in the past is already dead. Urien's voice was slow and level as if he was talking about something very mundane. However, his eyes belonged to a demon that had just crawled out from an infernal pit, and there was no hint of emotion in them whatsoever. A blade made of ice slowly materialized in Urian's hand. The blade was as translucent and thin as a cicada's wing. It was his signature deathly ice blade. Urian would only use that blade to decapitate enemies whom he deemed to be worthy. In the past century, less than 10 people had fallen to that blade. That wasn't because Urian hadn't killed that many people in the past 100 years. Instead, it was just that almost none of them was deemed to be worthy in his eyes. However, now that he had summoned the blade, it was quite clear that he was serious about killing Fox. Mag looked at the blade of ice in Urian's hand. He didn't try to dissuade Urian from killing Fox. In fact, if he were the one holding the blade, he would drive it into Fox's throat without any hesitation. He knew that Fox really did want to kill him and Amy just then, so if the choice were up to him, then he definitely wouldn't let Fox leave this place alive. In contrast, a hint of concern appeared in Sally's eyes. She knew that Fox was a representative of the giant dragons, and killing him could result in catastrophic consequences. No matter powerful Urian and Krasu were, they could only take on so many of the giant dragons at once. 2 people couldn't oppose the entire dragon race, after all. Master Urian, I think there may be a misunderstanding. I only wanted to scare the little girl, not actually kill them. I'm not an idiot, so how could I possibly attempt to kill someone in Chaos City? Fox could sense the enormous killing intent radiating from the deathly ice blade, and all of his fury had been replaced by horror. He thought back to all of the legends that he had heard about Urian, and even his voice was beginning to tremble involuntarily. Do I look like I'm stupid enough to believe such a blatant lie? Urian furrowed his brows as he brought the blade of ice downward. Have mercy! Right at that moment, a loud cry sounded. An arrow flew through the air, piercing through the domain of ice and frost before striking the deathly ice blade with unerring accuracy. The ice blade and arrow shattered almost simultaneously, sending shards of ice and wood clattering onto the ground below. City Lord, save me! Fox yelled in a panicked voice immediately. Michael! Urian turned toward the oncoming black horse-drawn carriage in the distance. There was a tall and broad figure standing in the carriage, and it was none other than the Lord of Chaos City, Michael. He put down the black bow in his hand, and looked at Urian as he said, Urian, I don't know what happened here, but I hope you can calm down. Please do not kill people for trivial reasons in Chaos City, especially representatives of the dragon race. Fox heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing that. Michael's words were more useful than anyone else's in Chaos City. He's the city lord? Isn't he boss friend that came to the restaurant a few nights ago? Yabimiya stared at Michael with a shocked expression. She was stunned that Mag was friends with the city lord. Urian turned to Michael with a smile, and asked, Michael, do you think you'll be able to stop me if I want to kill someone? Within 3 meters, no one can stop you aside from Novan. Michael shook his head as the horse-drawn carriage came to a gradual stop. No. Within 3 meters, even Novan isn't fast enough to stop me. Urian looked at Michael with a confident smile, and said, This is my absolute domain. I can kill anyone I want in it, and no one's magic can be faster than mine. Fox had just heaved a sigh of relief when a horrified expression appeared on his face again. If even City Lord Michael couldn't save him, then no one could. He was absolutely petrified. He was suddenly regretting attacking that little girl just then. If he could have repressed his temper just a little bit, then he wouldn't have landed in this perilous situation. Michael looked at Urian for a long while before heaving a forlorn sigh as he said, Novan may not be fast enough, but if Alex were still alive, then perhaps he would be faster than you. But he's already dead, isn't he? A forlorn expression appeared on Urian's face as he sighed. What a pity. Indeed, it is. Michael nodded with a wistful look. All of the giant dragons and demons wore complex expressions on their faces upon hearing Alex's name. All of them harbored mixed emotions toward that legendary figure. Actually, he's dead, but he's also still alive. Mag wanted to tell them that, but it would clearly be unwise to do so. However, he was struck by a sense of exhilaration upon hearing their high praise for Mag Alex. So that was how powerful he'd been at his peak. Could he have been even faster than Urien in his own absolute domain? So, I still get to decide whether I kill him, right? Urien resumed his frosty expression as he looked at Michael. Yes. Michael nodded as he glanced down at the deathly pale fox. He then looked at Urien, and shook his head as he said, "But I know you won't kill him. At least, you won't kill him today." "And why is that?" Urien was slightly intrigued. "My arrow just then could pierce through your domain, but if you were determined to kill him, he would still be dead by now." Michael smiled as he turned to Amy, and said, "Besides, it's not a good thing to kill people in front of children, right?" "I disagree. If you want to live in this world, then you'll have to kill people sooner or later, so I'm not worried about showing my disciple what it looks like to kill someone. In fact, I believe that she'll be even better at killing than I am in the future. She has a very righteous heart, and that has determined her future path. I believe she'll be an even more splendid magic caster than I am." Urien shook his head, and a sharp ice spike over a meter in length instantly appeared in his hand, which he thrust down violently toward Fox's eye. "No!" Fox screamed, and he closed his eyes involuntarily at the sight of the oncoming ice spike. Michael also narrowed his eyes slightly, but he didn't intervene. Meanwhile, Mag covered Amy's eyes with his hands. Urien wanted her to see what it looked like to kill someone, but Mag didn't. Even if she were going to uphold justice, that would be something for her to do in the future. She was still a child, so he didn't want her to be tainted by the sight of slaughter. The ice spike fell, but it didn't fall upon Fox's eye. Instead, it pierced through his right hand, and nailed it firmly into the ground. "Arg!" Fox let loose a howl of agony, and his entire body trembled with pain. Urien withdrew his ice spike, and looked into Fox's eyes as he delivered a menacing warning. "I'm not going to kill you, but that's not because I don't dare to kill you. If I want to kill you, no one can stop me. If you dare to try and hurt Amy again, there will no more frost dragons left." "Why yes." The deathly pale fox nodded with a horrified expression. In that instant, he truly felt as if he was going to die. The ice spike was aimed at his eye the entire time, and Urien only seemed to change his mind at the very last moment, driving the spike into his hand instead. Otherwise, he would already be dead. Furthermore, he knew that Urien was serious. He didn't say that he would be no more, but instead, the frost dragons would be no more. Urien had always been very proficient at committing mass genocide. At the very least, there was no one on the entire Norland continent that was more adept in that art than him. The frost dragons were extremely powerful, but it was never a good idea to offend such a powerful 10th tier magic caster, especially when he was also renowned for being a madman. Fox's entire body was gripped by crippling fear. Who would have thought that his rash actions against a half-elf girl would incur risk for the survival of the entire frost dragon race? This restaurant is not to be messed with. All of the demons and giant dragons looked at Mag and his daughter with meaningful expressions. All of them had 10th tier powerful beings among their respective races, but if Urien and Kraso were to join forces, then the tragedy of the ogres would most likely be repeated. All of them made a mental note to themselves that when they went back to their respective races, they had to caution everyone against messing with half-elves if any of them ever went to Chaos City. Master Urien is so powerful. Yabimiya was well and truly stunned as she stared at Urien. To think that even a powerful giant dragon would be completely at his mercy. As expected of the man who ranks at the top of the list of magic casters who aren't to be messed with, Master Urien is just as intimidating as ever. Surely no one would dare to cause trouble for the restaurant after this. "All right, little Amy, the bad man has been taken care of. You don't need to worry about anything with Master by your side." Urien turned to Amy with a smile, and said, "But remember, if you're sure that someone is your enemy, never have any mercy on them. Only a dead person will pose no threat to you. Of course, this man is not worthy for me to consider him my enemy, so I'll leave him to you. I'll remember this. When I grow up, I'll beat up this bad man myself. Amy nodded with an earnest expression. Was she arrogant? No, she was merely confident. Both the master and the disciple were both just as confident. The demons and giant dragons looked at Amy, and an indescribable sense of premonition welled up in their hearts. This little half-elf girl, who appeared to only be 3 or 4 years of age, could become a dazzling rising star in the near future. She was someone whom both Urian and Krasu had accepted as their disciple. Those two lifelong rivals cooperating with each other was something that indicated that she was definitely not some talentless little brat. Fox gritted his teeth in agony, and he didn't dare to look at Amy and Urian for fear of losing control over his emotions. Back when he had first met Urian many years ago, the latter's powerful ice magic had traumatized him deeply. As he grew stronger, he developed the false impression that the gap between them had already been minimized. Only after being slammed into the ground by a single palm did he come to his senses and realize that his daddy would always be his daddy. Urian didn't give himself the title of the premier ice magic caster on the entire continent. It was a title that was widely endorsed by everyone else instead. Even Urian and Krasu will inevitably die someday. When that time comes, there's no way that little brat would be powerful enough to threaten me. Fox had his head lowered with a vicious look in his eyes as he thought to himself, I'm going to enjoy torturing her and her father to death. Michael put down his bow in the carriage before jumping down, and turning to Urian with a smile. Urian, are you going to participate in the conference today? Do you think I look like a demon or a giant dragon? Urian answered Michael's question with one of his own. Whatever you are, you're just as humorous as ever. Looks like I'll have to invite you for a drink next time, then. Michael chuckled. If you're paying, I'll come, Urian replied expressionlessly before making his way toward his magic potion shop. The frosty energy in the air immediately receded, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Even though all of the dragon and demon representatives had seen many 10th-tier powerful beings in the past, they had never felt such oppressive pressure from any of them in the past. My apologies for this incident, Mr. Mag. I should have sent someone from the City Lord's castle in advance to welcome these guests. Michael turned to Mag with an apologetic expression. That's all right. My only hope is that you take more caution when selecting guests to come to my restaurant. There are some guests that we do not welcome here. Mag nodded in a calm manner. He didn't appear very angry, but he didn't let things slide, either. After the events that had taken place in the residential area for the families of the deceased miners, Michael had most likely been extremely busy, so it was understandable that he neglected to deploy people to his restaurant in advance. I'll make sure that things like this don't happen again in the future. Michael nodded before turning to Fox, who was slowly struggling to his feet, and he wore a stern expression as he warned, Fox, you are a representative of the dragon race, so I won't evict you this time, but let me warn you that here in Chaos City, you must abide by Chaos City's rules. We treat the safety of our residents as our top priority, so if you do something like this again, the City Lord's Castle and Grey Temple will not show any mercy. Fox's expression was a little dark, but he still bowed his head in the face of Michael's authority in the end, and said, I understand. Michael took a glance at Fox's bleeding hand, and continued, if your injuries are too severe, then you can skip the conference for today. There's no need for that. I can participate in today's conference. Fox shook his head as he swept his left hand over his right, upon which ice immediately covered the entire wound, effectively stopping the bleeding as if he had slipped on an icy glove. However, everyone knew that Fox's injuries definitely weren't just limited to that hole on his hand. Otherwise, he would be relying on the powerful recovery ability inherent to all dragons to heal his wound rather than use ice to temporarily seal it. Michael took one last glance at Fox's hand before turning to Mag with a smile. Mr. Mag, may we come in now? Of course. Mag nodded with a smile, entering the restaurant with Amy's little hand in his. Even though he was certainly not very fond of Fox, he had agreed to let Michael reserve the entire restaurant, so it would be unwise to shut everyone out due to that prior squabble. A few horse-drawn carriages with the city lord's castle insignia arrived nearby, and a few officials with stacks of documents in their hands rushed into the restaurant. The restaurant isn't very big, but the decor is very good. I wonder why City Lord Michael would make this place the conference venue. Dracula was the first to walk into the restaurant. Welcome. Yabimiya greeted everyone with a smile. After hearing Jinx's words earlier, she was feeling a lot better. So the golden dragons didn't look down on half-dragons like her. If only her father was a golden dragon. Sally nodded to express her acknowledgement of their guests. She wasn't very fond of the bloodthirsty vampires, but Dracula had tried to help Mag and Amy earlier, so she had developed a good first impression of him. Hello, beautiful ladies. I finally understand why City Lord Michael decided to hold our conference here. Not only is this a well-constructed restaurant, more importantly, there are graceful and beautiful waitresses here. Dracula's eyes lit up at the sight of the two of them, and he bowed slightly with a smile on his face. After everyone entered the restaurant, Michael turned to Mag with a grateful expression, and said, "Mr. Mag, thank you for what you did this morning for the families of the deceased miners. You have saved the lives of many people, and brought more light to this city." Mag looked at Michael with an earnest expression, and said, "I just happened to be passing by, so I decided to step in. The City Lord's Castle and Grey Temple will have to be the ones to truly bring light to the entire city. However, I hope that you can let all of those living in darkness know that they shouldn't be resigned to their situation, and that as long as they ask for help, someone from outside the darkness will be willing to extend a helping hand. Do you have a suggestion for how I can achieve this?" Michael also looked back at Mag with an earnest expression. The words that Brandley had passed on to him from Mag had given him a big shock. Those were not words that could be spoken by a simple chef. Mag hesitated momentarily before replying, "I wouldn't say they're suggestions, they're just shallow opinions of mine. I think the City Lord's Castle and Grey Temple could establish a joint organization that takes reports from the public. If they've suffered unjust treatment, they can go to that organization to file a report and seek help rather than accept their fate and await death. Of course, for this organization to succeed, the City Lord's Castle and Grey Temple must maintain independence, and supervise each other's work. Otherwise, it will just become another corrupt organization that will inflict further harm upon our citizens." A reporting organization. Michael looked at Mag, and carefully considered the idea as his eyes gradually lit up. He grabbed onto Mag's hands with an animated expression, and said, "That's a brilliant idea. I've been wondering how to supervise all of the officials of the City Lord's Castle for an entire day, but no matter what I thought of, there were always holes in the system. It turns out that I've been overlooking the best supervisors this entire time, our citizens." That's right. If the families of those deceased miners had had an organization that they could report to, they wouldn't have had to suffer so much tragedy. Mag nodded, and extricated his hands from Michael's grasp in a nonchalant manner. He didn't know much about politics, but the political system in his past life was obviously a lot more advanced than the one in this world, and based on what he had seen in the past, he could offer many good ideas. "I'll have to discuss this with Roland before implementing some changes." Michael nodded as he sighed. "Mr. Mag, if it weren't for the fact that your cooking is so delicious, I really want to make you my second in command. You have a brilliant mind and some superb ideas. I also prefer cooking over politics." Mag shook his with a smile. "That makes sense. The City Lord's Castle wouldn't be able to pay wages as hefty as the earnings of this restaurant." Michael chuckled as he walked into the restaurant. "Father, did I do something wrong?" Amy latched onto Mag's hand, and looked up at him with puzzlement in her bright blue eyes. "You did nothing wrong, Amy, it's this world that is at fault." Mag patted Amy on her little head before squatting down in front of her as he said, "However, before you assign strangers nicknames in the future, you have to see what kind of person they are first. If they're kind-hearted and have good manners, then you can give them a nickname as a joke, but if they're short-tempered and petty people, then they'd feel insulted, and could even try to hurt you because of that. Father believes that you bear no ill will toward anyone, but sometimes, the world bears ill will toward you. Amy thought about this carefully for a moment before nodding with a serious expression as she said, I understand now. People like Big Sister Zixie and Big Bear are kind people, while people like that bad man from earlier are petty people. I won't give those people nicknames in the future. Good girl. Mag gave Amy a hug before walking into the restaurant with her. He turned to Amy with a smile, and said, Tonight, an important conference is going to be held at our restaurant, so when they're speaking, you can listen, but don't interrupt them, okay? Okay. Amy nodded obediently. Within the restaurant, the dragons and demons had already sat down at opposing rows of tables, and the atmosphere was very tense. Michael sat in the main seat, and one of the workers from the city lord's castle was distributing documents. Two other officials sat in the last row with a pen and paper laid out in front of them. Those two appeared to have been tasked with recording the contents of the conference, and with that, there was a total of 10 people taking part in the conference. Yabimiya poured cups of water for everyone before standing beside Sally near the kitchen. Mag had already told them about the conference, and Michael didn't ask them to leave, so they stayed to listen. It would be fine as long as they didn't say anything to disrupt the conference. As for when the dishes were supposed to be brought on, Michael didn't mention that, either. However, under normal circumstances, such a serious conference should be held in a format where discussion took place during the meal. Are they going to fight? Amy sat on a stool behind the counter with Ugly Duckling in her lap, and she supported her chin with her hands as she looked at all of the people sitting in the restaurant with curiosity on her face. Mag walked into the kitchen, and continued to prepare ingredients. Giant dragons and demons were most likely all massive eaters, and 300,000 copper coins had been issued to him already, so he had to make sure that there was enough food for everyone. This restaurant is quite interesting. This mural of the Demon Islands is not bad, it's roughly identical to the Demon Islands on the map. Dracula turned to the wallpaper beside him with a relaxed expression. His gaze then fell on the three dragons, upon which he pursed his lips with disdain, and said, You dragons sure are shameless. Following the conclusion of the war among species, we signed a treaty stating that our species have joint ownership of the boundless sea realm. Whoever discovers something in that region first gets to keep it, but you dragons suddenly attacked a fleet of our ships, causing the entire fleet to sink, thus resulting in this small-scale war. You have to give us a proper explanation for that. Nonsense. Jinx slammed his fist into a table, and yelled, You demons were the ones who started everything. We don't care too much about the area outside the Dragon Island, but that doesn't mean that you can approach the Dragon Island at will. Within the boundless sea realm, there are over 3,600 small islands, all of which belong to the Dragon Island. Your so-called fishing fleet traveled to the westernmost island that belongs to our dragon race, and claimed it as your territory. They also severely wounded a blue dragon that was inhabiting the island, so you were trying to invade the Dragon Island, and provoked our entire dragon race. Bullsh*T. I went to visit that island, and it's several thousand kilometers away from your Dragon Island, so it's no longer part of your territory. If any island in the boundless sea realm belongs to your dragon race, then why aren't you claiming the Demon Islands as your territory? That blue dragon was the one who started the fight, and, being the idiot that all you dragons are, it tried to take on a whole fleet of demons, only to be crushed by it. It then ran back and cried for reinforcements, wanting to destroy the entire fleet. If you want a fight, then why don't you wait for our reinforcements to arrive as well? We'd be happy to battle you, then. Toro's voice was as loud as a foghorn, and his face was flushed red with rage. He slammed his palm into the table, almost cracking it in half as a result. So you want a fight? Bring it on. Our dragon race isn't scared. It's your fault for being too slow. We already destroyed the entire fleet before your reinforcements even arrived. If you think that was unfair, then let's have another battle. The flames on Havid's body erupted, incinerating the table in front of him, as well as the chair in which he was sitting. The situation suddenly became even tenser, and everyone was glaring at the opposition as if they were preparing for battle. The conference has only just begun and it's already so intense. They're not going to demolish the whole restaurant, are they? Mag was a little concerned as he looked outside. However, the city lord's castle had promised compensation for all damage caused to the restaurant. As long as he had enough money, he could just buy everything from the system again. Yabimiya clenched her fists tightly, and looked at the incinerated table and chair with a pained expression. If you would like to battle, then please leave Chaos City right now. I have agreed to host this conference, but that doesn't mean that I'll allow you to do whatever you want. Also, I suggest you take a look at the restaurant's rules first. Damaging furniture will incur costs on your end, and those costs will not be covered by the city lord's castle. Michael flipped open the menu on his table before looking up at the dragons and demons with a solemn expression as he said, "Of course, the city lord's castle has a responsibility to ensure that you pay due compensation to the restaurant." The demons and dragons stared at one another with slightly stunned expressions. Michael was renowned for being quite an amicable man, but he seemed to be rather unforgiving on this occasion. It wasn't as if fighting during a conference hadn't happened in the past, but not only was Michael prohibiting any physical conflict from arising, he was telling them to look at the restaurant's rules as well. Since when did the representatives of the dragon and demon races need to take into account a restaurant's rules? Even though all of them were rather perplexed, they could tell that Michael didn't seem to be joking. Furthermore, they were all representatives of their respective races, so if they achieved nothing during the conference before being kicked out of Chaos City, it would reflect quite badly on them. Chaos City wasn't as powerful as some of the premier species on the Norland continent, but held a special status due to its multiculturalism, as well as the fact that the city was founded in the aftermath of the war among all species. Almost no species had engaged in conflict with Chaos City before, and it maintained an absolutely neutral stance on the Norland continent. It was exactly because of this that Chaos City was often sought after as mediator in conflicts between races. During the past century, countless peace treaties had been signed here, and it had almost become a tradition of sorts. Furthermore, Chaos City was quite a force to be reckoned with in itself. After developing for over 100 years, the city had gathered many powerful beings from all species, and all of them referred to themselves as residents of Chaos City. As such, they didn't belong to any species or race, and only fought for Chaos City. City Lord Michael was also an extremely powerful man. He had already become a 10th tier knight 30 years ago, and the arrow that he had launched to shoot through Urion's domain was an indication of his power. He was one of the most powerful beings on the Norland continent, and in Chaos City, his word was absolute. Let's see what kind of strange rules this restaurant has. Dracula was the first one to pick up a menu before flicking through it. After a while, a peculiar expression appeared on his face, and he turned to Havid and Toros as he said, "Looks like you two will have to pay compensation for the broken furniture, and it has to be in cash. That's why you should all learn to be gentlemen. I fully support this restaurant's rules. This place is trying to teach you how to be a gentleman." Everyone else hesitated momentarily before also picking up their menus. Havid reached for his, but he was a little concerned at the sight of the flames burning on his hand, so he snuffed them out first before picking up the menu. "City Lord Michael, we're here for a conference today, not for a meal. If even talking is prohibited, then how are we supposed to proceed?" Fox put down the menu and turned to Michael with a slightly exasperated look. "Exactly. I can accept not fighting, but my voice has always been this loud. The chief told me that I have to talk loudly during this conference to get my point across." Jinx scratched his head with a confused expression. "So? I really have to pay in cash? I didn't bring any cash with me, What do I do? Havid also scratched his head with furrowed brows. Yes, the restaurant only takes cash. Amy nodded at Havid, and said, Uncle Fireman, you can borrow some money from Uncle Goldwire beside you. If he doesn't have any money, either, you can pluck some of his gold hair and that should be enough. Havid turned to look at Jinx with a thoughtful expression upon hearing that Jinx scooted his chair to the side with a wary expression, and warned, Are you that poor, Havid? Don't even think about touching my hair. If you don't have money, then I'll lend you some, but you have to pay me double when we get back. All right, I'll pay you back double. Havid nodded with a resigned expression. Mia, grab a new table and chair for the customer. Mag's voice sounded from within the kitchen. He didn't think that Michael would be so straightforward and domineering. If all fighting was prohibited, then he wouldn't have to worry about his restaurant being demolished. That was quite a relief for him as the restaurant had a large customer base, so if it were demolished, he could ask the system to repair it for him, but his customers would all notice that it had been repaired in one night, thereby drawing a lot of suspicion. Yes, Mia replied before carrying a table and a chair from the corner to Havid. Meanwhile, Sally was responsible for cleaning up the ashes, but she didn't use her water magic to do so. Is she worried that she'll blow her cover? Mag looked at Sally with a hint of surprise in his eyes, but he didn't raise any questions. The conference can continue. My objective today is to host the conference. Chaos City will continue to be a neutral and fair mediator, as well as facilitator. I won't interfere with your conference, nor offer any of my own personal opinions. Michael sat back down in his seat, and splayed his hands open as he said, You may continue. The dragons and demons looked at one another, and decided that fighting was definitely impossible thereafter unless they wanted to be kicked out by Michael. Furthermore, they really did want this conference to yield results. The battle over that island had reached an impasse, where the demons had taken over the island, but it had been surrounded by giant dragons. As such, they were engaged in a pointless tug of war. Both sides were expending a lot of manpower and money on the battle over the island, but in essence, it was a very pointless battle. However, the situation had deteriorated to a state where negotiations were no longer possible without a third-party mediator present. They were still withholding their most powerful beings from entering the battle, but if the situation continued to worsen, then that could change in the future. If 10th-tier powerful beings were deployed, then that small battle could escalate into a true war between the two species. Peace had only returned to the continent for a century, but it would be plunged into another devastating war. As such, both sides wanted to settle the issue via diplomacy. However, asking their own troops to retreat would severely dent morale and be seen as a sign of weakness. It was exactly because of this that a dead end had been reached, and Chaos City was required to step in as a neutral mediating force. Even though everyone had the same goal, which was to resolve the issue peacefully, negotiations were not a simple matter. Both sides wanted to secure more benefits for their own species, and perhaps even pin the blame on the other side, which was where the conflict of interests arose. Thus, one side had to dominate the other, and the most straightforward way to establish domination was through a fight. However, it appeared that fighting was no longer an option, so they could only engage in a war of words. Dracula looked at Fox, and fired the first shot. Fox, I heard that you once ran 3 laps around Dragon Island in the nude to escape from Alex, is that true? Fox's expression immediately darkened upon hearing that. His frozen right hand was trembling slightly, while his left hand was clenched tightly into a fist. Ha ha ha! Gustav and Toros both burst into laughter, and they almost fell of their chairs amid their raucous guffaws. Jinx and Havid were trying to repress their laughter with all their might. One of them was looking up at the crystal chandelier overhead, while the other suddenly developed a keen interest in a little black dot on his table. However, both of them were trembling uncontrollably with mirth. Havid was the first to break, and he roared with laughter as he turned to Fox. Pfft! Ha ha ha! I can't hold it in any longer. Fox, I actually always wanted to tell you something, your A*SS is pretty white. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. You saw it too? I also saw it. Ha 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 ha. Jinx also erupted into raucous laughter, even to the extent that tears were flowing from his eyes. Yabimiya immediately turned her head to the side, trying not to join them in their laughter. However, she simply couldn't help but smile at the thought of the high and mighty Fox being chased around in the nude. Alex. I didn't think that he was that type of person. However, that Fox guy is clearly not a good person, so Alex must have been punishing him. I wonder if he was with the princess at the time. A hint of surprise, confusion, and wistfulness flashed through her eyes. So you were running around in the nude? Like streaking? You. What a shameless baddie. Amy turned a disdainful glance toward Fox. Did that happen? Mag also faltered slightly upon hearing that. He couldn't find that scenario in his memories, and he didn't recognize Fox, so he could only assume that he was with Irina back when that happened. Fox took a deep breath to calm himself down before firing a shot at Dracula in return. "Heh, Dracula, don't you vampires proclaim that you only drink blood, and never eat vegetables? I heard that Princess Irina forced you to eat grass for 3 days, and even your hair was dyed a grass-green color." Dracula's smile immediately stiffened as if he was forced to recall something painful. His expression gradually twisted, and an unhealthy flush appeared on his pale cheeks. Pfft! Ha ha ha, I remember that. It was on the Demon Plaza, and he was forced to give a live performance of a herbivorous vampire. They were even selling tickets for 10 silver coins per ticket for spectators. I also bought a ticket, and it was the first time I've ever seen a vampire enjoy eating grass so much. Toros had almost passed out from laughter. I also saw it, and I even brought along my son. I laughed for an entire year whenever I thought about that. Gustav was also gasping for air. Holy F***ck. AR, aren't you guys supposed to be on my side? Dracula looked at Toros and Gustav with a pained expression. I almost forgot about that. I flew over just to see it, and it was the first time I've ever seen a vampire eat grass so happily. I didn't think it was you. Jinx looked at Dracula with a surprised expression before bursting into laughter again. Yabimiya was biting down on her lower lip, trying her best to repress her laughter. Irina. Mag was a little surprised to hear that. However, he couldn't help but chuckle at the mental image of a vampire being forced to eat grass. That girl was truly an extraordinary person. Furthermore, she was selling tickets to spectators. Was she trying to use those earnings to fund her journey? She had escaped alone from the Elven settlement to explore the Norland continent, after all, so she had to earn money. That was certainly a unique way to do it, though. Princess Irina. Sally's eyes lit up upon hearing that. She had also emulated Irina by running away from home, and she was surprised to hear about her idol here. She thought to herself, the princess is so awesome. She really did go the Demon Islands, and she even made a 9th-tier vampire eat grass. But, why did she charge entrance fees to spectators? Could it be? Sally's eyes immediately widened. There were 2 reasons why she was still at Chaos City, the first of which was that she had been captivated by Mamie Restaurant's delicious food, and the second reason was that she didn't have enough money to go anywhere. Only after leaving the Wind Forest did she realize that it was difficult to go anywhere on the Norland continent without money. Elves were very close to nature, but they couldn't survive just drinking dew. Furthermore, lodging, clothing, and other things like that all cost money. She had worked at a small motel for 30 copper coins a day, so she knew just how difficult it was to earn money. However, Irina's epic money-making ploy opened up a whole new world to her. So money can be earned like this. As expected of Princess Irina. Sally was genuinely amazed. If she were in Irina's shoes, even if she could defeat that vampire, she definitely wouldn't be able to make him eat grass, then profit from doing so. Uncle Bat, Didn't you say that you don't eat vegetables? That elf princess was trying to help you by feeding you grass. Amy looked at Dracula with an excited expression as she said, you have to be a good vampire, so you can't be picky, and have to eat a bit of everything. Father told me that. Dracula immediately turned to look at Amy, and his eyes widened as a ghastly mental image appeared in his mind. The mental image was of a beautiful elf with a black leather whip in her hand stuffing grass into his mouth as she repeated the same words over and over again. Be a good vampire now. Don't be picky, you have to eat a bit of everything. Even though he was hearing those identical words after a span of 5 years, he was still struck by the urge to fall to his knees. His head rang as he stared at Amy's intricate features, bright blue eyes, and pointy little ears, and he was struck by a sense of familiarity. No. Impossible. There's no way that she's her child. Dracula shook his head violently to rid himself of that thought. Who would have thought that he would hear the same words spoken by a little girl after so many years? Dracula glared at Fox with gritted teeth. After that first exchange, both sides were evenly matched, with no one gaining the ascendancy. Don't laugh, Tauros. I heard that the porcupine battle boars that you were breeding rioted because of Irina. You went to chase her down, but you were chased by the boars instead for an entire night, right? Jinx chuckled as he looked at Tauros. You're one to talk, Jinx. Who was the one who boasted that he was the strongest in the world, only to lose in an arm wrestling match to Alex, and was forced to call him father after that? Tauros immediately fired back. You seem pretty happy, Gustav. I heard a certain someone was trying to peek on the elf princess as she was showering, only to be imprisoned in space by her in the Tree of Life for an entire year. That's funny, Havid, you seem to have forgotten that you encountered Alex during his first trip to the Dragon Island. He said you were too hot, and kicked you into the ocean. You stayed at the bottom of the sea for 3 days before daring to come back up. Meanwhile, Mag was laughing himself silly in the kitchen.